Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Cosmere Connections.
Kay,
Let me tell you about our Lord and Savior, Kelsier.
I'm ReaderWarrior, and today we have a very special Stormlight Memes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on.
It is my pleasure. Ready to dive in.
That's great to hear, because today we are going to be talking about Mistborn, Hero of Ascension, Part 4.
Hero of Ages.
Hero of Ascension.
The Will of
boy.
Ages.
I am tired. It's the A. The A got me. Okay,
Of
we're talking
ages.
about Hero of Ages, the Well of Ages, the thing. Part 4.
The final ascension.
Beautiful Destroyer, chapters 50 through 54. And I actually have the first two chapters, so we're just going to jump straight on in.
Rock and roll.
So the top part reads, one can see Ruin's craftiness in the meticulousness of his planning. He managed to orchestrate the downfall of the Lord Ruler in only a short time before Preservation's power returned to the Well of Ascension. And then, within a few years of that event, he had freed himself. On the timescale of gods and their power, this is very tricky timing. This very tricky timing was as precise as an expert cut performed by the most talented of surgeons. We saw in a previous one how the Well of Ascension's prison was not keeping you locked in a place, and that Ruin was very free to do about. And this is just showcasing more of Ruin was able to manipulate the Lord Ruler's death, been getting to the well, and all of that, even while he was still captured.
That's a lot of, that's kind of braggadocious of whoever's writing this. It's kind of like, oh, so everything that happened in the Final Empire, that was all Ruin's make and model. Our heroes necessarily weren't doing it of their own volition. Like, it kind of puts it into a whole new perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for the epigraph? As the doors open, Vin swallows her last vial. She ignores her new guest and tries to leave, but the doors are held down by a large rock. She then tries to threaten the nobleman. He makes a table, sets out 2 glasses, and introduces himself as Teldon Hastings, Elend's former friend. Teldon says that one of them is filled with a strong sedative, and he is here to convince her to drink it. Vin says that she can use means to force him to let her out, but Teldon assures her that his mission is to get her out, and that any violence she commits on him or his servants will ultimately mean nothing. They are at a stalemate. Vin's running out of food, and Yolen won't. She's unconscious. However, Vin has one trick left up her sleeve. Pewter can help her resist poisons and Duralumin, and with Duralumin, she might be able to burn away the sedative. She takes the wine and drink it. At first, she fakes drowsiness as she flares her metals, but the effect was too strong and outlasted them. Vin falls unconscious, and Teldon laughs. End of chapter.
Well, it was cool to see Teldon have more of a role to play in this book.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Because it's Elend's old friend. So, we knew that he was in town. And it's very smart of Yomen to have sent Teldon down because Vin already has a connection to him. So, it's someone that she would, on some level, kind of know, or not necessarily trust, but that she knows about and knows what kind of person he is, as opposed to sending a random nobleman. I had actually forgotten it was Teldon. For some reason I was thinking it was Slow Swift who was sent down. Because that's just what I remember.
because there's a million characters.
Well, yeah, and there's only 2 noblemen that we've had mentioned.
And there was a line where Vin was like, wait a second. The reason he's so off-putting is the fact he does remind me of Elend. And that is a genius play on Yolen's part.
Mm-hmm.
my complaint is that out of the two friends Elend we have seen return in the last two books, both of them have been not nice people.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that Telden's not a nice person.
Drugging your
I
friend's wife?
I mean, he's technically he didn't do it. He didn't trick her. He didn't do anything. He was, and I honestly don't think he had that much of a choice in it. In going down there, I think Yomen was like, "You're going to go down there with her and get her to drink this wine, and if you don't get her to drink it, you're gonna die down there." Like,
I don't know, the chuckle at the end that's awfully like
it.
villainous.
I
Like,
didn't
I'm not
take
saying
it.
he's
So
evil.
what I'm saying is, I didn't take that chuckle as like a like an
Haha.
like a haha like kind of thing. I took it more as a like, huh, like didn't think that would actually work. Like kind of like a more like a nervous kind of chuckle, like a huh, like hmm. Like wow, didn't think that was gonna work. Like kind of like
So
more
instead of like the dark, it's
yeah.
more like a huh,
Like,
Yeah.
or
yeah,
whatever.
a little chortle of like,
Okay.
huh, I'm actually getting to live through to the end of this day.
Yeah, because I don't think that he thought he was going to. Like, he knew that there was a chance that she would just kill him.
Yeah.
Well, there's three. So either option A, Yolan basically down there. Option B is he volunteered to go down there, in which that turns it from the I was forced to all the way to the villain side of the Dow. Maybe in the middle, he's like, I will ask you to go down there. You will probably die, but he's like, okay. I'm putting him somewhere in the middle. I just,
This did make me question his allegiance, though, because,
yeah.
like, he was in Ellen's group that talked politics. Was he ever against the Lord Ruler, or was he just palling around with Ellen? Because Yomen seems to still worship the Lord Ruler, especially what we see at the end of this group of chapters. Like, I never got the impression from Telden that he was as diehard about the faith as Yomen is. So I can see him
I think,
being coerced into doing it, I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah, I think that Telden is very much like doesn't, he's not super like, oh my gosh, the Lord Ruler is amazing. Like, but he's very comfortable in his life, and he doesn't want those comforts to change at all.
And that's where I'm envisioning it too. But it's like I am willing to do anything to keep my comfort, even drugging and helping with the kidnapping of the Empress.
Well, he didn't help with the kidnapping of her. He just didn't help her escape.
In
Like,
a
he didn't do
way,
anything
pedantic
to
here.
kidnap her. I'm just saying. Like, he is not the one who kidnapped her.
No, but
I,
he had a chance to help her leave.
I think it's kind of the like it's part of the overarching criticism that seems to be like throughout the Mistborn series regarding like the responsibility of the nobility. Like the fact that the noble class just in general continues to see things that are wrong, they recognize it, and they do nothing about it. And then even the fact that Telden and Jastes and the others were part of this group with Elend and had like the same amount of information and the same sort of setup that he did, but he's the only one who came out of it different, wanting to change, wanting to do something about it. I think that speaks more volume about the quality of Elend as a character, rather than, well, at the same time also showing that the nobility as a population was just corrupt. And so Telden, like by nobility standards, he was probably like a decent guy, but for the Ska and for the rest of the oppressed population, he falls into that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem kind of category. Like he's not the worst. He's not actually going out and doing the kidnapping and doing the murder and all that, but he's playing the part because, like you were saying, he wants to stay comfortable. So I think it plays into that criticism that we see throughout the series.
He probably saved a lot of people's lives by doing that. If they had sent anyone else down there, I mean, Vin would have got to slashing probably pretty quickly. But just the fact that it was one person she actually did know and used to be Elend's friend.
But I also have him wanting that power. Like at any point in the last 2-3 years, he could have gone to Luthadel and been like, "Hey, Elend, my friend."
He didn't know that Elend was still in charge in Luthadel.
He didn't.
No, he said that. He said that. He was like, I thought that you would have been like deposed by now. Like I thought that someone would have taken your throne by this point in time. Like he had zero faith that Elend would be able to keep the throne in Luthadel. Like,
but that means he still like knew that up to a point he had it. Oh, I would.
well, yeah, he was there when
now.
Elend was crowned.
Which means
king.
he left. He wanted to have comfort in
because again, he had no faith in Elend that Elend was going to be able to keep the throne and keep the city stable. He didn't think that was going to be possible. So
okay.
I'm reading now.
Elend
like
is not a nice friend.
He's not really nice though.
He's neutral. He's kind of like he's on the fence. Like he does what he needs to survive.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
But he says like Elend was the only one of us interested in the Ska. I assure you, the rest of us really didn't understand where he got such a fascination with them. Like, I feel like I'm starting to come on Reader's side a little bit, just from that line alone.
But my point is that he is not acting with malicious intent. That's my point.
And I will agree to that, but I'm saying his normal is still like on the bad side. That's all I'm saying. And like he's definitely, hey, I just talked with Elend and he was telling me how much he loved you. I could like whisper to you, fake being unconscious, and then we'll bust out together and you can go join him. But I'm not. Like he still goes through with this. He could have helped her escape.
But he wouldn't do that because that would jeopardize his position as
All right, we should probably move on.
He's not a nice guy. Okay.
I was just saying, I love that Sanderson reuses characters that you thought you'd never see again, which we'll see again in these chapters.
Anything else for this chapter? Okay. Chapter 51. Back to back. Once Ruin was free from his prison, he was able to influence people more strongly, but impaling someone with a hemalurgic spike was difficult, no matter what the circumstances. To achieve such things, he apparently began with people who already had a teeniest grip on reality. Their insanity made them more open to his touch, and he could use them to spike more stable people. Either way, it's impressive how many important people Ruin managed to spike. King Penrod, ruling Luthadel at the time, is a very good example of this, which we shall see next chapter.
Right.
Nothing we haven't really been able to piece together yet. Donned with a mist cloak and dark clothing, Elend makes his way to where Kolos camp was reported. If Yomen won't be diplomatic, then Elend would put a knife to his throat. Elend comes across a burning village under attack by the monsters. He rushes in, killing one immediately and taking its sword. More and more Kolos and more and more Kolos attack, and more fell to his. This wasn't just to regain an army now. This was for Elend to let out some steam. With all of his enhanced elementic powers, villages like these were dying under his watch. The Kolos weren't able to fall under his control yet. They needed more. My stutter's really bad tonight. They weren't under his control yet. They needed more death and more fear. As he fights, Elend realizes why power is so lustful. He would give anything to protect his people. The villagers rally behind Elend, but he still can't control them. Where was their Inquisitor leader? But as more and more beasts fell, he didn't reveal himself. Elend finally burns Zinc and Duralumin and takes control, but still no Inquisitor. Elend prepares to take his new army when a villager speaks up. Quote, "You're him, aren't you?" an elderly man asked. "Who?" Elend asked. "The Lord Ruler," the man whispered. Elend looked down at his black uniform, encased in a mist cloak, both of which were slick with blood. Close enough. There's so many things I want to talk about in this chapter.
This was one of the coolest chapters, though, of the whole book.
Yes.
You know, I'm a big fan of the fight scenes. I never really
We're
felt...
here for the punchy, stabbies.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those. Not gonna lie.
Much different than later on where we have the shooty wacky.
Yes. Which are also very exciting.
I never really got the sense that, like, the book compares Elend to the Lord Ruler a lot. And for me, that comparison never really hit home. Like, what about you guys? Do you kind of feel like he's following in his shoes, or like that sense of guilt is something that comes across strongly?
I kind of got the sense through the course of Well of Ascension and then to where we are now that Elend doesn't necessarily like the change that he has had to make. So I don't think that it's necessarily like a true comparison. I do think that it's him being a little bit self-deprecating because he's very different than he was in book one. The true Elend that we know is the bookworm, the philosopher, the analytical minded. He's like in book one, he can't even rescue Vin from the jails. Like she rescues herself. He's a very sweet, not pacifist, but kind of pacifist guy. And then through everything that he's put through, and because of what he has to become, he reluctantly becomes a harder, more fight-driven person. But it's not because he wants to; it's because that's what's needed. And so I think that he starts to empathize with the Lord Ruler and what he had to become. I think he's going a little bit overboard because he's not, going to the extent of, I don't know, full-on massacres. But I do think that he's being hard on himself.
If I may, I think he's not being overly hard on himself. I think he's being wary of how far that could go. I don't think he's emphasizing with the Lord Ruler. I think he's understanding the paths that he took at certain points, like the breeding programs. I don't think Elend, no matter what is going to happen with Ruin, would ever do that.
Right.
But controlling Kolos, besieging a city, ordering the death of a man who literally was just acting out of fear, that's pretty harsh stuff. Stuff that the Lord Ruler definitely would have done. And I think Elend questioning that just shows how concerned he is with that, and how this is something the Lord Ruler would do, and I have to be aware of it. Because I need to, at some point in the future, due to all of this bad stuff, needs to get out a positive good from it. All of this needs to turn out good, so this will all be worth it. Which is sort of what Rashek thought, but Rashek was always, I'm doing this at this point because I want it. Because I didn't like the Kaleni people, and I want to be the big guy in charge, and I am making myself a figure. Elend didn't want to be emperor. He wanted a system of democracy that honestly kicked him out. And Elend is now forced into this path. And him having to constantly look back and have to compare himself is I think, a great example of realizing I don't want to be that. And the whole thing about power in this chapter was an amazing reference to Vin and how Vin had that power. She could have, and she did what he's basically saying. I would do anything to protect our people. I would leave somebody to die if it meant protecting.
Well, Elend's whole thing throughout this book is perfectly summed up in the quote that he says earlier in the book, which is somehow we'll find it the balance between who we wish to be and who we need to be. Because he's constantly battling that balance, trying to figure out, because he knows what he wants to do. He desperately wants to be this democratic leader who's giving power to the people, who's allowing everyone to make their own choices and their own decisions, and not having to come in and force people to do what he wants them to do. But on the other hand, he needs to have that. He can't have that right now because they're not in a situation where that democracy that he really wants is feasible. Because with the war and the battles and everything going on, it's just not feasible at this point in time to be able to do that. And it hurts Elend a lot to have to do this because he doesn't like it. He doesn't like having to. He doesn't want to have to attack Patrick City. He does not want to do it. That's why he kept trying to talk to Yomen and trying to come to an agreement with him. Yeah.
I understand that. Like, he has had to make some really tough choices in this book, but it was always for the betterment of his friends and for his empire. Like, the Lord Ruler, I feel like part of this book too is just us understanding how much of everything he did was that. Like, when you read Final Empire, you think, wow, this guy's evil. He's just evil to the core. And he certainly did a lot of evil stuff, but you find out so much of it was just to prevent what's happening now. So, like, it is kind of a cool comparison, but with Elend, I just never got the sense of, like you were saying, he would never do breeding programs. He would never go to the extent that Rashik did. Rashik took it to a whole nother level. And I liked how you put it, he's being self-deprecative, because I do think he's way too hard on himself.
And I wonder if there's something to say the fact that Rashek, when he took the Well of Ascension, and though he did do it because he hated Alendi, he still took the power and he did try to fix the world. He did try to stop the deepness. And he, built the ash clouds. He did all these things. He made the tiny little molecules. Slight spoilers, possibly, because I don't, but I'm pretty sure we've covered that.
We get to it.
He made the ash-eating
Microbes.
Microbes, that's the word. Thank you. But once he, that's when Rashek kind of went evil. Then when she got this power, even as somebody lay dying as the love of her life lay dying there, she still released it. Both of these people used that power for the greater good. It's what you do when you don't have unlimited power that defines what kind of person you are.
I do love, there's kind of two schools of thought that crop up in these books. And one of them is, you have to do tough things to protect people. And then the other is kind of what we see with Kelsier, where it's like this idea that starts to come in the back of your mind when you're reading of is he really caring about the Ska, or is he just doing this to gain power and to prop himself up as a godlike figure? And I feel like Elend is the perfect foil to that Kelsier ideology.
Yeah, I did. I did think about, because I can't remember if this is a direct one-for-one correlation, but I couldn't help but make the comparison between this scene and a scene in the Final Empire when we see Kelsier destroying the pits of Hathsin. And part of it is because he is trying to destroy the pits, but also he is taking out his anger because of, I think right before this was when he stumbled across Marsh and thought that he was dead and all of that. And so he was letting out steam. He was putting a lot of his emotion and trying to control that or have some sense of control when he had lost all control. And so in that sense, like they both wrought a bunch of destruction in the midst of their personal turmoil. But Kelsier didn't seem to have that same like level of self doubt in that scene, like that.
Right.
And it's hard to know because I think it was in the
The next
perspective
chapter.
of, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say that the next chapter, the whole end basically happens and he dies, and we don't see if there was any.
Right, exactly. No, that's a really good point. And when we do see him having destroyed the pits and killed all the guards and all of that, it's through the perspective of one of the pits, like
Wallen. Wallen
oh
is
yeah,
the initial person.
he has a
And
name.
yes, Wallen, because he's in the wall.
Okay. Oh,
But
nice.
One of the best names.
yes, it starts off with him, but then it cuts to Kelsier after like he
Oh,
pulls
that's
him
right.
out.
Yeah. And so it's just interesting to see that correlation between these two people who, to your point, it had this really strong connection because they're both trying to save the world in their own sort of way. But then, and I don't know enough about this in the grand Cosmere scheme of things, but the word intent does come up a lot, like that there is power in the person's intent. And I don't know if in this case it would be the capital I or lowercase I, but either way, like it applies here because the power is one thing. The person who controls the power, who wields the power, is a different thing. And seeing how those two things, same sort of situation, same sort of setup, yield different results is just really intriguing.
Beautifully spoken. I love that. They should
Thank you.
make a magic system where you have to like make an oath or something to get powers.
Yes.
That would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a nice, also another correlation to that is that both went there to release that anger, yet both also went there to help. Kelsier took all the people out, and he didn't lead them anywhere. He basically said, "Go, you're free." But Elend, the villagers. Granted, he doesn't do anything with them afterwards, but he also
gives them
takes the
money.
Colossus. Does he give them money?
Mm-hmm. He does in
Okay.
the next Elend chapter.
Okay.
I was gonna say I don't remember that.
Well, that's technically not in this chapter set, so I haven't read it yet.
Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry.
I'm not cutting
was
that
my
out.
fault.
That is not a big
That's
enough
fine.
spoiler to warrant cutting out.
That's not. a big
It
enough
happens
spoiler
at
to
like
worry
the
about.
beginning of like chapter 55, I think, because I was listening and I didn't realize I had started the next chapter.
That's perfectly fine. But Ellen takes the Colossus to go, do what they were meant to do. They both go there with anger, calm down, kind of. They do what they were seeking out to do, but they also add in a positive.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Sorry. I was gonna try to take us away from like the long connection things and just point out two little things.
Same.
One is,
what do you have?
I got Elend is still not really good with pushing and pulling.
Oh, I
Vin
thought that
has
was
her
really
old
funny.
tornado horseshoe trick, and Ellen is still like throw coin down, land, pick it up, walk a bit, shoot off.
I thought it was hilarious his comment about Vin just doesn't understand why I can't get this down, and she's just so confused about it.
I did love
Because
that.
apparently she figured it out with like within like 1 hour of like messing
Yeah,
around with
30
it.
minutes of discovering it. And meanwhile, Ellen tried 5 times. I'm done.
I
And then
kind of springboarding off that, there was like a line about how Vin could take down a Koloss with like coins if you hit them in the right spot. Where do you have to hit them? Like, what do you have to do? Do you have to knock out their spikes?
I'm guessing you have to, same thing with like Inquisitors. You got to hit them in the spine that severs it from the head, I'm guessing.
Or like, I feel like if you hit him in the jugular, like, that would probably knock him out real quick.
Hit them in the spine, I'm guessing. I'm saying like anywhere in the spine, like if you hit that part at like an extremely volatile force, like that'll do some damage.
If you roll a nat 20, you can take a Koloss out in
Yeah.
a few coins.
Exactly. And Vin
I mean-
is really good at rolling nat 20s. So
there is that one not interlude, but epigraph. I don't know. It's at the when it's describing that there are 200 to 300 points on the body that trigger something when you apply metal to it. One, that surprised me. I'm sorry. I know that I'm diving into somebody else's epigraph. I think.
That was
I can't remember.
Good while ago.
it was
a good
a
while
while.
ago.
Good
Yeah.
callback.
Oh,
We
that's
were-
right. Because
we were
I had
shocked as well.
okay, because
Sorry.
yeah, before we did this, I accidentally read chapters 40 through 45, and I was like, yeah, I'm ahead of the assignment. And then I went to the Discord, I was like, no, I'm behind on the assignment.
That's the worst feeling.
So yes, I was like, oh, I'm back in high school again. So what I thought was interesting is that that even in that, it said that knowing exactly where they were and what they did took like I can't remember how it was worded, but it was a level of expertise that is just crazy. And so what I imagine with that is that Vin just manages to hit those spots, the right spots, the exact right spots where they need to go. And like you said, always rolling in nat 20. Maybe she's just maxed out all of the modifications, the enhancements.
Right? Nothing but critical hits and headshots.
Yep.
she's always
And
rolling with advantage.
Yes.
Yeah. My other comment was I love how Elend burns zinc. Vin has always done soothing and brass. Elend does zinc and rioting, which not only is it like a juxtaposition from Vin, but it's also the only other rioter we have in the group is someone who more connects to Elend than Breeze connects with Vin more. Elend connects with Alriette.
Oh,
I thought that was
that reminded me. These chapters are cool because you're having like
yes.
well, yes, they're very cool. But like you have Vin trying to negotiate with Elend's friend, which is Elend's area of expertise, and you have Elend trying to take on a bunch of Koloss, which is Vin's area of expertise. And you also have kind of the thing of like Belgia being captured by Spook and the crew, while Vin is captured by Yomen's crew. Like, there's a lot of like weird little kind of mirrored things happening in these chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you just pointed that out about the fact that Elend is doing what Vin usually does, and I think if Vin knew that Elend was out trying to fight Koloss by himself, she would have literally strangled him.
She would have strangled him, and then it would have been Set. She would have gone after Set first, because heaven knows Set was like, "You want to go fight off a whole Koloss and possibly an Inquisitor all by yourself? You go, kid. I'm in charge, right? I'm next in line. Okay, you have fun." That's all I got for chapter 51, though.
Okay. 52. So, that's my chapter this week. So, in the epigraph, it's really long, and essentially all it amounts to is that the ash was piling up a lot. So much so that the microbes that the Lord Ruler created when he warped the world essentially can't keep up. So the world is being buried in ash fall. Any
Overwater
other
a tree
comments?
and it'll drown.
About the epigraph?
Well spoken.
Okay. So, this is a wonderful TenSoon chapter. So I've got my Soonie buff out.
Petty him.
Love that
So
thing.
TenSoon has made it to Luthadel because, as we remember from way back when, a while ago, is that he is trying to find Vin because he needs to tell her about the Khandra and about the first contract and whatever's in that. We don't know what's in it. He's got some important information that he needs Vin to know, so he's trying to find her. So he goes to Luthadel, and we don't realize it until he gets there and we see his point of view, is that he has no idea what's been going on. The last time that he left, Luthadel was being besieged. Straff was ready to take the city. There were Koloss outside as well. Everything was going to shit for them. And, so he doesn't even know if they're still in charge, if Elend is still in charge in Luthadel or not. So he, tries to hang out next to some guards to listen in, and the entire time he's like, God, I wish Vin were here to be able to riot these guards so they would start talking, because I'm so bored of just waiting for them to talk. And he's like, wow, they're not saying anything useful right now. And he thinks of an idea, and he's like, ooh, I got a better idea to get information. And he goes and he finds the bones of Kelsier, which he knows where they were because that was one of the things that he interrogated when he was interrogating Orsur. When he killed Orsur, that was one of the things that he made sure to learn about, was where Orsur had buried Kelsier's bones after he had resurrected and come back to life as Kelsier. So he puts on Kelsier's bones and he's like, I hope I get this right. He's like, I've only seen this man once in my life. Hope this is convincing enough. And wanders through the city dressed as Kelsier. Yes.
Okay, there was a POV split, so I was going to take that as a small.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, there are 3 in this chapter.
Oh,
there are 3.
I was just going to read it as TenSoon's point of view the whole way. So we can go
I wanted to. The last time we saw TenSoon was chapter.
Which one?
And there was
49?
so much. 39.
Oh, sorry, I cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. It was chapter 39, so it was a good while ago. But also, there's so much we learned from TenSoon just in his returning to a place where he was home. And TenSoon is very much a character who's like, I will never have a home outside of the homeland. But Vin was able to do something impossible. And he even lists 3 impossible things. She was able to kill the Lord Ruler. She was able to defeat a Mistborn running ATM without it. And she befriended May. And that is the most wholesome thing. And it is beautiful.
It's not exactly a homicidal hat trick, but it'll do.
No. Yeah, that was about it for this point of view.
Okay.
But who we switch point of views to is kind of a big deal to me.
Wellen.
Right?
Yes, not Wallen. Wellen.
Not Wellen. Not Nelland. And not Elend. Wellen.
Yes.
Which do you guys know, when the last time we saw him was?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I
yes.
can't go for it, reader.
Swiggity can say where he comes from. I will secret. Wait.
Okay, so if you don't remember, in the Well of Ascension, we get a POV.
Oh, was he part of Set's group?
Yes,
Soldiers
he was.
on the wall.
And
Yes.
him and his friends
He
were
was the
walking
only
around in a
survivor.
spooky, misty night when all of a sudden, about 250 coins started blasting out of the mist when Vin and Zane attacked Set's palace and basically killed 300 people.
I thought that was him because he makes a comment in it where he was like, he's like freaked out about the mist.
Not
Like
again.
Is
he's
it going out
like
again?
worried
Yep.
that like something is gonna like someone is gonna jump out and like attack him again. Like he's constantly like worried
He's
about
probably
it.
got PTSD.
Like stressed. Honestly,
that.
fair.
He
Watching
was the
all
only one
of
to survive from his unit.
yeah, I would say watching all of your friends get murdered in like 2 seconds. Yeah, fair. I would also have PTSD.
Mhm.
So he's there.
Wait.
Okay.
Brandon named this character after Dan Wells.
Very nice.
Oh, he even
thought he
gets
just
called
had a-
Wells.
You know, he just has a knack for naming characters in these books that all have like Elend,
Yeah.
Welland, like
Wallen.
Melland.
Melland.
You know,
We'll never
they're
forget
just
Melland.
so. Okay, so he's hanging out. So Welland is hanging out with his friend, who named Riddle. Is Riddle. Him and Riddle are on guard duty, and Welland is like stressing, because he doesn't like being on guard duty outside because PTSD, and he sees something coming out of the mist where he's like, "Oh my God, please not again!" Like, and instead he sees a man come out of the mist, and he's not sure who it is at first, but Riddle, I think that's his friend. Yeah, Riddle, friend's name. Immediately like falls to his knees, starts clutching the spear pendant around his neck, and Welland is like, "What?" And then like eventually puts it together and is like, "Oh crap, this is Kelsier. That's who this is. That's who I'm seeing right now. Kelsier, TenSoon as Kelsier."
What are you talking about? Our Lord and Savior Kelsier has returned.
Yep. He's right here as a dog. And he asks them for information. Is essentially asking them for information about the city, and he's trying to do it in a way that's not suspicious. And honestly, does a pretty good job. And so he finds out that there is not enough food in the city. Everyone has been like fighting over food constantly. Penrod is gone cuckoo. And no one in the city knows where Elend and Vin are. They don't know where the army is. So, but he eventually remembers that, oh, there was a like super top secret like group of people who came and stopped to get supplies before heading up to Urto. So he's like, they are probably up there in Urto. So now TenSoon has a heading. So before he leaves though, he does tell them, he says to them, is that,
He's like,
tell the people that when the mists leave, they should immediately find shelter, a place underground if possible. This is one of the things that he charges them with, is that when the mists leave, go underground. Tell as many people as you can this is what they need to do when the mists disappear.
Which
And
is
then
weird
he-
because mist disappearing, that would be a good thing.
But we don't know what that's like.
Yes.
We know
TenSoon knows things.
So TenSoon knows things. We don't know what all TenSoon knows. TenSoon knows that something is going to happen. And he has information, like you said, that he knows that Vin needs to know. TenSoon's got a lot of information that is going to be very important coming up. And this is kind of the first hint of that information.
He
That
really
we've got
should not have
listed.
left.
Yeah, he really shouldn't have left. And he's realizing, I should not have left Vin. I should not have gone back to the homeland. I should have stayed here to help. But he did, so now he has to deal with the consequences of his actions.
Here they come, the consequence.
Any other comments before we move on to the next part?
I got 2. Anybody else want to go though? First one is they are sent. There was a comment on what caves, and it is the caves that Kelsier originally hid his army in. So those weird caves all the way back in the Empire. I just like that this ghost of Kelsier is telling them to go back to those caves.
Yeah. Well, he says underground, and the soldiers are like, the caverns. Those are the only place that we can. Those are the place that we can think of that's underground.
Yes.
So he's like, yeah, sure,
And-
go there. Sounds great.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Well,
funny.
and
It
the
works
thing is
out that
kind
way.
of a yeah. It's kind of a nitpick, but who in Luthadel is melting silver down and making like spear pendant rosaries for this brand new religion? I want to know who is doing that. Who's cashing in on that?
Some very wealthy ska.
Yeah.
The end of the world is happening, and some guy is melting down tiny little spears.
Well, Dachshund also has one.
Get you into the world space.
No, not Dachshund. Not Dachshund. Sorry.
End of the
Demu.
world's coming.
Demu. Demu has one as well. It's
Yeah,
become the sign of the religion. Sorry, my bad.
and
Different
we do
name.
we do see that like even on the warehouse, like the sign has the spear, but I'm wondering who is making them. That's what
Well,
I wanna know.
it's been what, 3 years since
Yeah.
Kelsier died?
Yeah.
So, they've got time on their hands. They don't have the internet or TV, so they've got to do something. And crafting is a good way of just, spending time.
I want to know, was it somebody in the religion like here? Or was it some guy like, hey, wait a second. Wait, those guys. I'm going to make them a thing and I'm going to make money. Because this is a brand new religion thing. And if we tell them that this thing is holy, then that. Granted, I come from a religion with rosaries and all of that. So, like, I completely understand it. Like, I want to know how it started.
You're wondering if it was a fellow devotee or an opportunist.
Yes.
Or maybe a mix of both.
Or
Maybe it was somebody who's like, Lord Kelsier has given me this duty and this benefit.
And if I get rich in the
Get
process,
to it.
not going to be the end of schedule.
What if it was somebody who had already made a whole bunch of spears? They just had it ready and they didn't know when this would come in. They were like, this is my time to shine. These are coming in handy right now.
Randy, stop making those spears. You're never going to amount to anything. Someday, Mom.
They were for like
Just wait.
they're for sandwiches. They're like the little things in sandwiches. So guys like, well, now that the economy is supposed to do with all these buckets of tiny silver spears, Jeff, you won't believe it.
Well, there's something it was interesting about like silver is it kind of touches on it in my chapter is like, is silver not very valuable in Scadrial because it elementically is inert?
Correct.
Yeah.
So
And I believe
they're cheap.
Wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't Vin like forced into silver chains or a silver cage back in Final Empire, or am I just completely filling in blanks from what happens in Swiggy's chapter?
I think you're thinking about what happens in Swiggity's chapter.
It definitely happens in Swig.
I know it definitely happens in Swiggy's chapter, but I could have sworn there was something about silver.
No, because they don't put Vin in chain. The Inquisitors don't put her in chain. In Final Empire at all, I don't think. I think that they just, because they make her take, burn aluminum, and then they're like, oh, she is defenseless now, so we don't really need to, like, chain her up. They put her in a cage, but they don't lock her, like, put manacles around her or anything.
Silver is not very strong. I used to machine silver, and it's like stringy, and it's like I feel like you could cut it with a knife. Like it's very weak. So it's just interesting to me. Like on our planet, in our world, like obviously silver plated things and silver is like special, but it's just so funny to me that like in their world, you know, things that have a different that actually have value, like the metal itself has so much value. Like it's not necessarily the rarity of it even.
Yeah. Did you find the answer, reader?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have anything silver. I guess one. Yeah, okay. I guess I was just filling it in from what happens in Swiggy's chapter.
I had a question about this chapter, like how, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but like it said TenSoon tortured Sir to get information. How do you?
I was gonna cover that in the spoiler section because I didn't know how in depth we wanted to go with Chandra.
Well, we can save it if you want to.
No, because Chandra stuff has been covered already, right?
Yeah, we talked about Chandra stuff already. So I kind of assumed that it was essentially. So you're asking like how he tortured, essentially. Is that what you're asking, Swiggity?
Yeah, because I mean, I just assume like if you're a Chandra, you could maybe like turn off your nerves or something, right?
So I think that what he did, this is what I'm guessing, is that he used acid. So would have used like slowly using acid to eat away at Orsur's body, like tiny like bits at a time.
Yeah.
That's very grim.
That's what I would guess he used
grim
as
question.
torture. But I don't think we ever actually know. We don't ever actually learn about that.
This was something I was wondering too. I don't think, because the thinking is that we saw, in which, no, they do feel pain, because there was a whole thing at the beginning of Well of Ascension where he got hit with coins or stabbed, and he's like, I still feel pain, mistress, and he makes a whole comment.
And when
Vin makes no move to stop it.
Well, TenSoon also talks to Vin about that, is that he feels pain because when he's pretending to be Ursur, he's talking about previous masters, how they would beat him repeatedly. So they do feel pain.
So not too different from just regular, you know, good old torture.
Yeah, but I thought the implication was that Vin gave Orsir the bones of the dog. Orsir went into a side room and then got leaped upon by TenSoon. Orsir, not Orsoon. And then got leaped upon. And then torture happened there. And then next time we see him, that's TenSoon.
Correct.
That was... Okay. So I don't think he would have brought in like a bucket of acid. And especially
well, that's how he
like,
killed him. That's the only way that you can kill a Chandra.
But that's like
acid
also
is how you kill Chandra.
I think. Okay, but like,
wait,
there's so much confusion in that.
Like remove the spikes
if you remove
too?
the spikes, that still leaves the mist wraith.
Yeah.
But like, I always kind of wondered, what if like he removed the spikes and then ate him, and like added his mass to his own.
I don't think that Chandra can eat other Chandra.
That's how I understood. Because like, unless he had acid, and I highly doubt he would a bucket of acid into Keep Venture and then suddenly disposing of that. when he couldn't even get rid of the bones, really.
Where are they getting this acid? Is acid like
yeah, like
I'm sorry, I don't know a lot
like
about
the Homeland
acid,
is like
but,
the only place I've seen acid in this world. Anyway, like
Well, I don't know. It depends on what kind of acid. Technically, you could just go get a
Salt.
lemon. Like,
he's holding his eye open. Where's Kelsier's body? You will never get. Son of a! I will tell you.
when life gives you lemons.
No, you make Condra paste.
Oh my god. Yeah, I did. I had the same sort of thought when I was reading through it, especially during my reread last year. I imagine like the pits of acid that we see in like old timey like I don't know
Cartoons.
good yeah like old Batman cartoons. Like imagine the vat of acid that the Joker falls into, like the
I've
green
got you now,
bubbling
Batman.
steaming. Yes, exactly. That's what I imagined that they would be for using for the Conjure. And you're right. Like what container holds that? I don't know. I would assume that it would eat through all of it.
well, it depends on how fast it would eat through the container.
Mhm.
If it takes like 3 hours to eat through the container, you can probably bring that in with you.
Okay, but that's
Now,
like one bucket. So imagine one bucket survives there from the Homeland to Keep Venture.
But
Sneak a bucket of acid in.
you're assuming that they have to get the acid from the homeland.
This
That's
is
not
true.
necessarily true.
John would know
This
this.
is true, but it's the only place we've seen it.
Just because
especially
that's the only
since
place we've seen it doesn't mean that's the only place it exists.
like if the Lord Ruler devised that as a mechanism for keeping them in line or to be the only way to destroy them, then it would make sense that he would have some on hand at Creedic Shaw at the very least, just in case. Maybe he has his own like sub basement that just has a pit of acid. And like just in case, who knows? And they didn't really cover that when they were touring, giving the tour of Creedic Shaw back in the Final Empire. So
Also,
who knows?
you use acid. You can use acid in lots of things, like metalworking. You can use acid. So, like, there's probably acid in the like forges of like where the soldiers are for whoever makes.
I'm sorry, I
weapons
can't
and
get
stuff.
it out of my head that it's just the green
Like-
bubbling acid. That's the only
Neither
way
can I.
now.
Neither can
Yeah.
I.
Okay, okay.
It's
you
produced in the
continue. I'm
digestive
searching.
system of most mammals, so they could have, potentially gotten it from that. Apparently so hydrogen chloride is what you make hydrochloric acid from, is apparently found naturally in the environment. So
I'm sorry, is everybody on this call now looking up acid
Yes.
on Google?
Oh, I wasn't looking up acid. I was searching mobs. Shardcast and asking there.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, oh man, like I know that writers like very famously have very strange Google search histories as they're writing
Yeah.
their books and researching. Now I just imagine what would happen if we went to every Cosmere fan's Google history
Oh,
and like
I can't get into it on this podcast, but I Googled something today that it's like the worst thing I've ever Googled.
was it because of the Cosmere?
No, it had nothing to do with the Cosmere.
Was it
but
torture techniques?
It's just funny that this is coming up again. Like I'm gonna be put on some sort of list now. I just know it. Like after this.
Okay.
You're just trying to keep your assigned FBI agent on his toes.
He's
Always keep him guessing.
If we have another subscriber after this, I'm gonna know why.
Okay. So.
Okay.
Let me finish this chapter. Can I finish this chapter?
We haven't even got through the chapter.
We haven't even gotten through this chapter yet. There's one
No.
more section in this chapter. So, TenSoon goes back to go get his dog bones back. Because now he has a place where he's gonna go. He's gonna go to Urtel. hoping that Elend and Vin are actually there. And as he goes to get the bones back, so the bones that I forgot to mention this earlier. The Kelsier of Kelsier were buried behind the warehouse from Book 1 that Kelsier had stored a bunch of the weapons and stuff in, that the crew found their final assignment from Kelsier in this warehouse, and that is where Orser stored the bones. And this warehouse has since become a holy spot. People to worship the survivor at. So, you can see where this is going. So, TenSoon goes to go get the dog bones back because he put them in the same place that he got the other bones from. I don't know why he didn't just bring them with him, but he didn't. So he goes to get the dog bones back out, and this time he gets noticed by the people that are in the building, and they are like, "Oh my gosh, Kelsier, you returned to us. We knew that you were gonna come here. That's why we stayed here. Please help us. Penrod is destroying the city. We need your help." And TenSoon tells them that they need to leave town and that they should go to the cave that he had trained his army, that Kelsier had trained his army in, and that the guards at Keep Venture would help them, lead them to the correct place. And he also, again, tells them that, I think he also tells them, when the mists leave, get underground, stay underground.
So because of all this weird stuff, this weird series of events ends in basically Kelsier coming back to life and saving the people of Luthadel, once again.
Yep. So, and TenSoon is able to extricate himself from the situation. He changes back into the dog body and keeps the Kelsier bones with him, and ties it on his back like a backpack. And starts running off to Urto to try to find Vin.
And the silver spears fly off the shelves once again.
Whoever that guy is.
We see a drastic rise in survivorism.
He's just keeping track of all the silver spear stock. Just making a comeback.
If it was,
That
I was
guy's
thinking,
got a bunker somewhere.
Yeah.
If it was Jeff in Mistborn, it would be Jeffin. Jeffin is making a killing.
I have noticed, I know this is a different series altogether. It is not spoilery though, but the trend with Kaladin, Adolin, Renar Rin, Dalinar, Gavilar, wait, Dalinar, Gavinar, Galavar. There was another R.
Gavinor.
Well, that one's an OR. But there was one more, and I'll come back to it, I'm sure. But anyway, he likes the repetition. And yeah. And then that was going to be a spoiler. There's another IN name, but that comes in Oathbringer. Anyway, all that to say, he loves those repetitive names.
Which is not how names really work on Earth. You don't have Davin, Danin, Sharon, Clayton.
It makes me think
I
of
don't know,
old.
I was gonna say, in my classroom, I have a Lanaya, a Kamaya, a Kanaya, Ayana. Like, there are so many, like, nuh-uhs, like,
Nuh-uh.
in this classroom.
All right, you
So,
got me there.
like, it does it in the in our world as well.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think there's cultural aspects to it because of language. So, like, uh, reveal my actual name is Ashley, and so ASH. So Ash has Ashton, Ashley, Ash. I don't know. There's more. I've like but one of the reasons why is because in Old English, like that was a very common root because of ash trees. I don't know why they had a fascination with ash trees, but it happened. And so now, because of that history that has nothing to do with who we are today, it's still kind of prevalent. And same thing for like there's like the Alex names, Alexandra, Alexander. So I think that there are repetitions, but just culturally, I think like the way that I saw it happen with, at least with Stormlight Archive, and I don't know if this is accurate. I've never asked Brandon this, but I wondered if it was like a generation thing because Dalinar and Gavilar are one generation. Kaladin, Adel, and Renarin are the second generation. And then you have the next, maybe. I don't know.
Blowing my mind right
Two
now.
does not make a pattern.
So,
So,
I do know that. So in this is getting off topic, and
sorry.
I just want to say this real quick. Is that in Alethi culture, this is something that Sanderson does touch on, is that the names do have meaning. Like part of the names, specifically when we learn about Adelin's name, where he got his name from, the I think the like Ado and then Lin. The Lin part is a specific, like, means something specific. I can't remember what it means off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But
How did I not realize Ado was in his name
Yep.
Yeah.
until now?
Yep.
Oh
Is
my
that why you
gosh.
just facepalmed, reader?
Yes.
I learned that 2 years ago when I was creating a TikTok and I was spelling out another name. I don't know if we're allowed to say that name here on the podcast.
I think I know who you're
think I
talking
know,
about,
but
and I
please
just
don't.
thought of that. Like,
Okay.
what if he
That
came
is
up
the
with that
connection I was making.
to match?
I was trying to type that name out, and my suggested names came up. Like when you're typing on your phone, it comes up with the suggested one, and Adolin came up, and I was like, oh. So that's how I learned that, was because of TikTok. Thank you, phone.
Okay, and the consensus on 17 shards seems to be he took out his spikes and ate him. That seems to be
Interesting.
the common theory. But there's no WOB dedicated to it yet. Other than, how did TenSoon overpower Orsier? Orsier had the blessing of potency. It's Brandon Sanderson, and this is paraphrased. TenSoon is wily.
Very helpful.
Thank you,
thanks, Brandon.
Sanderson, for that wonderful.
Add that to the list of questions to
AKA,
bring up Sanderson.
I never thought of it until now.
Okay. Anything else for chapter? We're only on 2. Okay. Anything
have
else?
2
for
more,
52? Right? Yes. This is a very slow day for.
Probably
We have a
gonna
lot
run.
to say.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about chapter 52.
We really did.
Yeah.
And I thought
Okay.
not much happened.
Me too.
Not much
Well,
did happen.
to our wonderful guest, the floor is yours.
Okay. I hope it's okay that I read from Coppermind for the synopsis and all that. Okay, cool.
Do you think?
That's fine.
All right, chapter 53. The pact between preservation and ruin is a thing of gods and difficult to explain in human terms. Indeed, initially, there was a stalemate between them. On one hand, each knew that only by working together could they create. On the other hand, both knew that they would never have complete satisfaction in what they created. Preservation would not be able to keep things perfect and unchanging, and Ruin would not be able to destroy completely. Ruin, of course, eventually acquired the ability to end the world and gain the satisfaction he wanted, but then that wasn't originally part of the bargain.
Nice.
Okay, do we
So
talk about...
long ago, two gods made a deal.
Mhm.
And we have been hearing small snippets of preservation in these epigraphs.
Mhm.
And a few things in the actual stories, but nothing extreme yet.
Yeah. It is interesting that dichotomy that grows through the series, and the more we learn through these epigraphs about preservation and ruin being two sides of the same coin, so to speak. And it's just interesting how they came to that agreement for their own needs. And then they both found ways to exploit it. And it's just, I don't know, the concept of preservation and ruin existing on the same planet has always interested me, especially when we compare how other planets exist and how those powers, especially when you see Roshar and how those different shards interact or very poorly interact versus these two that have existed together for millennia. So anyway, I just thought, I think it's very interesting. It makes me think of do you guys watch Disney movies? Are we a Disney crowd? Okay, have you seen Mulan?
Mhm.
Okay, so you know, and I'm talking about the like the real version back in the day in the 90s, where
Yes.
Mulan has like that big pole that she has to climb up, and she's got the two weights that she
What do you
has
mean
to
real
use.
version? There's only the one.
There,
There's
that
only
is
the
very.
animated.
That's right. Good answer. So she uses them, and she realizes that only by using them together can she actually like climb up the pole. So sorry, Disney lives rent free in my head constantly. So if nobody else
Same
is
here.
connecting with this scene, it's
No, but
totally
now I'm
fine.
gonna be struggling to remember what the two names are because he literally says this is
Discipline.
duty.
I think it's like duty and like discipline or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Something along that.
I think one of them is discipline, but I can't remember what the
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was
No, I think you're right about it's either, oh my gosh, maybe I'm tapping into Stormlight too much, but I want to say honor.
Maybe it's duty and honor or yeah.
You know what? After this, I'm gonna watch Mulan. It's fine.
But
Thinking Mistborn the whole time.
before we move on to the extra chat, I've always been fascinated by the fact it's because you always get these stories of two god beings coming and creating a world, and you've got the good one, which is creation, the bad one, destruction. But I love that's not what this is. You have preservation and ruin, not creation and destruction. Preservation, a force that is to keep things as it is. Ruin, which is a force to bring things down. And it's by them coming together do you see a creation. By keeping something, removing the rest, and allowing that to evolve, that one thing you kept, that grows. And then what you like, you keep, the rest you toss away. And I'm sort of imagining their creation of this. Ultimately, the book series in general is very rapid evolution and genetic control. I want humans, and we learned that's what preservation wanted. This, so like we are going to create sentient life. We are going to start with this thing. We are going to give it knowledge, consciousness, but we're going to take away some things. We're going to ruin some things, preserve other parts, and that slowly became humans. And I just love that aspect. It's so much different than what we're used to. Oh, creation. I create humans. Destruction. I kill them.
that speaks true to our
Yeah.
reality on like a scientific level too, of just like if everything stayed exactly the way it was, like you and I couldn't exist even. Like you, the elements that compose bodies that humans are made of are did not exist until stars collapsed in on themselves and like spread those elements throughout the universe. Like things literally cannot be created without destruction, and they really are like there's a cool line by Rune a few chapters back of just like a thing has not been truly completed until it meets its end. Like I think that is so cool.
It's also very dark, and like very on brand for this series. I I feel like I don't know enough about the different shards and their impacts on the worlds, or at least I haven't thought about it enough. But I do think that this is a very unique situation that they're in, and it makes me wonder what would have happened if they hadn't ended up in the same on the same planet. Like if they had been like let's say if preservation had ended up with cultivation, like how would that have blended? Or ruin paired up with odium, everything just destroyed immediately. Like can't imagine that going well. So
That is a cool
anyway,
thought
it's just,
experiment.
yeah. It like I'm interested to see more backstory of how the Cosmere came to be, because I also want to know how those shards ended up where they were. Like some of them, like I just learned about. I feel like I've read about Threnody enough that I should have known this before, but I found out that it existed before. And then these shards just happened to pass by while they were fighting. And then, like, that was a thing. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. Okay, so now the actual meat of 54. Preservation's desire to create sentient life. Wait. Oh, I already read that. Sorry. My bad. I was like, why does this sound so familiar? Get it together. Let's see. No, that's the next chapter. Oh my gosh. I will be fine. I promise. Okay, here we go. From the top. Chapter 53. That's where I'm at. Spook talks to Beldra, who tells him that she is half Ska and that she is going to be executed, but was saved, or she was going to be executed, but was saved when the final empire was overthrown. Beldra says that Spook is like Quellion, but he denies this. Spook speaks of his life in Kelsier's crew and of Sazed and Breeze allowing him to give orders, even though he feels like he isn't really in charge. He speaks of Vin and Elend and promises to try to save the city and not harm Quellion, then leaves to go out to the city. Spook promises trade contracts and a title to Durn in exchange for his help in clearing out the canal so people aren't drowned when they are refilled. Spook and Durn go to various taverns to meet with townsfolk and burnish Spook's reputation.
Nice.
So this is the
Great.
Spook hour. All about Spook.
We love a spook.
We love a Spook.
We do love a Spook chapter. There was a lot in this.
Okay, so going from the top,
Mm-hmm.
my first comment is, since when was Kelsier the person to run to relationship advice? Because, like, Spook's like, how do I talk to a girl? Kelsier, you. I'm just remembering, this is the same guy who told Vin, like, stop dating the noble.
Yeah.
Like, Kelsier is not the one to go to when you crush.
I don't know. I feel
Maybe
like
to him he was.
Kelsier probably
Sorry.
got all the ladies, but not because he was like super down to earth and good with people.
Well, he stole
Yeah.
Marcus.
I think, well, one, Kelsier at least got one lady to be on his side. Forget how it ended. You know, she was at least she liked him enough to marry him. And so maybe Spook's leaning into that. I also think that Kelsier just had this reputation of being very suave and very charismatic. And so Spook put him on a pedestal a lot, just like a lot of people did. But
It's not like a whole
especially,
religion about him or
yeah,
anything.
exactly.
Well, it goes in line with what Spook's like self-doubts are of like, oh, I shouldn't have opened up to Beldry. I should have been more commanding, and she should have seen me like commanding the guys. Like, he still has almost this like childlike view of like what would attract Beldra.
And I think it really goes to a lot of Spook's arc. And I'll be honest, Spook has not been one of my favorites of the Mistborn series. I have a hard time with him because, especially when it comes to Beldra, the way that his POVs are, it just reminds me of I don't know, like high school boys who are trying to get with girls. Like they're very insecure. They're very they're not themselves, and so like it's not that I dislike him as a character. I think he's really well written. I think it's just difficult to read all of that uncertainty and all of that insecurity in one individual body, and so it's interesting to me that that is paired with his I like the way that he idolizes Kelsier. And so a lot of times what he's doing is he's trying to emulate Kelsier. He's trying to be another Kelsier. He's always asking, what would Kelsier do? And almost like at one point he even um like in an internal sort of reflection towards the end of the chapter, he's talking about comparing himself to Vin. And he's like, well, Vin's not out here doing what the survivor did. I'm being the real survivor. I'm out here talking to the Ska. I'm out here leading another rebellion. I am just like Kelsier. And because when that's his goal, he's not himself. He's not, because he doesn't like himself so much that he tries to be what he thinks is the opposite, which is Kelsier. And that's hard to watch because it just doesn't fit. That's not who Spook is. Spook and
Sorry.
Beldra points it out, or at least it comes out a little bit more when he's talking to Beldra, that he is far more likable and far more respectable when he is himself and he's not trying to be this puffed up survivor guy. So
he has a voice now for his confidence that he did not have. That is literally in the aspect, the mental image of who he believes is his role figure. And like when he talks about the crew, he never talks about. He talks about Breeze and I felt like I was a servant and I had Spook. Everybody is Breeze's servant. Don't you know? Breeze manipulates everybody. Elend is just a book nerd, and yeah, war's changed a bit, but deep down, all he wants is in a library. Which is really nice that Spook is able to see past what they all become and recognize who they want to be. And Vin, and I have the exact line. Sometimes she seems as frail as a child, and then she kills an inquisitor.
Still gets me.
which is very accurate.
This is true.
It makes me think of the scene in I think it was Well of Ascension, when she like right after she goes absolutely berserk on those 300 people, and then she curls up in the little hole in the wall, and she's like, in the fetal position.
Yeah.
So he's not wrong.
I think a
Very
lot of
accurate.
that probably comes from her trauma, right? Just the way she was brought up. She had to kind of fawn for survival, but at the same time, she's got this fear of like never being under somebody else's power again, especially now that she has that power.
Yeah.
Vin never got to be her own woman. And that seems to be something that everybody seems to recognize in a way. Like, it's
Mhm.
sometimes she seems to be just a little scared girl, but she's not. She's killing God. She's killing Inquisitors. She's destroying 300 men in a single, like, 10-minute session.
But she is just a scared girl sometimes underneath.
Mm-hmm.
The things that scare her are not the battles. The things that scare her are things like abandonment and betrayal.
Mm.
And so it's like she'll fight gods and monsters all day, but when she's faced with somebody leaving
Losing
her,
Elend.
yeah, that's what. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, aren't we all just a little bit like Vin? Like, we'll go slay some monsters, but please don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't leave me.
She
I
definitely
desperately need your approval.
she
Yes.
seems to have like borderline personality disorder to me, like just like the
Mhm.
fear of abandonment and this idea of like, you know, she had to grow up so fast. She never had
Yeah.
the chance to like, and the person she looked up to, like Reen, was a horrible influence.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. But it also goes into where her character is now and how she was able to go to Ellen and basically say, hey, we're going to split up. If anything happens, you go your way, I go my way. And now she's captured. She's literally thought kind of abandoned by her country, basically, captured by another. She is, in a way, abandoned, but that's not affecting her at all. She has grown so much in these two books, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that, like,
I
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was about to shift it back to Spook in kind of playing off of those same insecurities. And maybe one of the reasons why it's so hard to read Spook is that while she has grown in these past 3 books and she has grown through a lot of that insecurity and she's established more of a confidence in who she is, Spook is still straggling. And it's kind of hard
That's kind
because
of
you
what I was
want
gonna
him
say
to.
too. Like, Spook sees her get powerful, but doesn't realize like the internal reason that she is the way she is. Because, I mean, he's been through it enough, but like, he's still struggling, like you said, to find footing in the
It's
world.
also Vin. The reason why she's evolved so much and grown so much is because she's allowed herself to open up, to trust, and to love. Spook, we have seen, was at a very good point. Like, when we first see him in Well of Ascension, he's cocky, he's talking normal, he's having fun. But now, at the beginning of this book, he has completely enclosed himself. He has shut himself out. He's literally overloaded in every sense of the word.
Well, we're
And
seeing his reaction to handling Clubs' death,
yes,
and he hasn't been able to handle it at all. Like,
but what I was gonna say is that when he talks to Beldre, he's opening up. He's talking about himself, and he's allowing himself to be himself. He's not keeping it all in. He's being open. He's allowing somebody in, and he's actually being good. He has a great time with her, but then we cut to when they're at the pubs or the bars. Great, wow, I'm really entering British. When he's going to all of these places, he starts to lock himself in again. He listens to Kelsier's voice, and there was even a line when Spook himself was in power. Nobody at all has ever talked about, oh, after we overturn this, we're going to be the ones in charge. Spook's going to be named king of the city or something. There's never been a line, but now that he's being put on this pedestal and he's being pushed away from people, not pushed away from people, but pushing himself away from them. Like, he's becoming arrogant. That confidence that he's getting from Kelsier is now becoming arrogance. He's reveling in these people's cheers.
Power can be a terrible thing.
And it's interesting going back to the comparison between him and Vin, because Vin never likes that. Like, they try to cheer her on and call her Lady Heir, and because she's the heir of the survivor, and she like literally flies away. She's like, "All right, cool, peace out," and then she just eats. Versus Spook, who desperately needs and wants that external approval and validation to kind of bolster his lack of self-worth. It's just it is interesting to see how he not just wants it, he needs that. And versus even like at first I wanted to make that comparison to Kelsier, but even he didn't seem like he needed it. He liked it, and he used it. It wasn't necessarily for himself. He used people's opinion of him to get results.
I just realized it's because it's a warping of what they want to have. Vin wants to be connected. She wants to trust people, but she's literally got a religion that will believe in her, but she doesn't want that. She wants people she can trust. She wants closeness, togetherness, her family, basically. But now she's got all these strangers that are walking up to her and kissing her feet and like, oh, you will save us from the mist and you will return the sky, and yada, yada, yada. Well, Spook, he's now gotten people cheering for him, and he is getting this following, this secondary cult of this Church of the Survivor. But if he goes back the other way, where he's just with his friends, he gets better. So it's a warping of what they want to have. That's what makes it fascinating.
That's cool. I love that. It's also kind of interesting how TenSoon wears the face of Kelsier in the last chapter. Spook is essentially doing the same thing. It's just in a different way.
That is true. Yeah. Dang it, Kelsier.
I was like,
Like,
just grave.
Yes, he sure is. Good heavens. I remember when I first read this, and I got to the end of the Final Empire and Kelsier dies, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we're never going to see Kelsier ever again. And his name comes up all the time in these books. It's just like, what would Kelsier do? I miss Kelsier. Where's Kelsier? Oh, I'm so sad. And like, I feel like in most other books, like before this, I had read the song, well, not all of it, but the Song of Ice and Fire. And I won't spoil it, I guess, but a very prominent character dies at the end of the first book. And that's it. Like I don't remember seeing his name come up in the other books. Nobody was like trying to emulate him or whatever. And so the fact that Kelsier dies and then he just lives on in people's memories and the way they live their lives, it's like he is a religious figure. Just
Kelsier lives on in the hearts of Ska.
I love it.
That's
so what
true.
I had for that chapter.
That's so cool.
Anything else for 53 then? Swiggity, you have the last chapter of 54.
Okay, here we go. So, starting with the epigraph, as I forgot it last time. Preservation's desire to create sapient life was what eventually broke the stalemate. In order to give humankind awareness and independent thought, Preservation knew that he would have to give up part of himself, his own soul, to dwell within humankind. This would leave him a tiny bit weaker than his opposite, Ruin. That tiny bit seemed inconsequential, compared with their total vast sums of power. However, over eons, this tiny flaw would allow Ruin to overcome Preservation, thereby bringing an end to the world. This, then, was their bargain. Preservation got humankind, the only creations that had more preservation than Ruin in them, rather than a balance. Independent life that could think and feel. In exchange, Ruin was given a promise and proof that he could bring an end to all they had created together. It was the pact, and Preservation eventually broke it. That's a
dun dun.
Yeah, that's a lot to to really internalize, right?
So first thing, I love that the good guy. Hey, this is the one that's not trying to kill us. They're the one who broke the promise. I like that. Second of all, I love that the fact like I'm gonna use my power to create these people, and the fact that over time my power will, it'll increase a bit but stay stagnant mostly, while yours continues to exponentially grow, means you will have the ability to overpower me and you can destroy this place. I will not be able to stop you this time. The fact that that is intrinsically part of their creation of this. It has a self-destruct button. That is amazing. It's not I create this and I promise you will get destroyed. This is literally you cannot stop me. There will come a day where I get to do this. That is amazing writing right there.
It's also just like huge to me that humankind is basically made of preservation. Like they
Well, it's a combination of preservation and ruin, but it's mostly preservation.
right, they have both in there, but it like specifically calls out that it like their sapience, like their their ability to think and feel and have emotions. Like I think that is such an important thing to remember, like going through with these books, not even just Mistborn, but like the rest of the Cosmere. Because it paints things in a very different light for me, like the more I think about it.
I do think that there's an interesting comparison between how that happens with just don't know how much I can actually say about Stormlight.
I would keep it safe. Keep it safe.
Okay.
We will have a spoiler section
This
pretty
is-
soon.
Okay.
This episode might be in 2 parts though.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm
Nah, don't worry about it.
blabbering away. I think it's interesting how that kind of concept comes up in other worlds.
Right?
Yeah, and how the shards use that.
But also like just at on a mechanical level, like we see everything that's kind of connected to ruin needs the spike. That's kind of like, to me, like the only way that they can have sapience, the only way that he can control or have influence on a living thing is by literally like stapling his power to it to override the preservation in there.
Yeah, because his power comes from the not quite destruction, because it's not going away, but it is diminishing it. It is ruining in a way, but also in a weird way creating. Sometimes in a very horrific way. I'm looking at you, Marsh.
I'll have things to say about this in the spoiler section.
Okay.
So Vin awakes with no metals to burn. She is in Yomen's custody, chained to a bench. Yomen has gone the extra mile to keep all her potential metal away from Vin, even going as far as to remove her silver-plated bronze earring. He eventually gives the earring back, however, since it contains no metals that she can use to fight with. The servant is brought in to show Elend that she is still alive, and she has to answer a question that only she would know. So Elend is going to be aware that she's not dead. Yomen reveals to her that the reason for her capture was because he wants to execute her for the crime of killing his god, the Lord Ruler. For some reason, Ruin, still speaking in Reen's voice, is adamant about Vin killing Yomen. So it's kind of a short chapter.
And Vin is definitely convinced that she's like, he wants me to kill Yomen. I should not do that.
I'm just Yeoman's genius in this chapter is mind-boggling. Like he does rainwater, wooden cups, filtered. He tests the earring, which I don't even know how they do that. silver chains. We were talking about silver a little bit ago.
Well, you can test for the type of metal that it is.
So, like, is there like a chunk that's missing now from the earring? Did he shave off a bit and they put it through a spectrometer?
Maybe.
I have
It's
no
just in my
idea.
mind. I'm like imagining the earring, and then somebody looked at it, and like that's how they tested it. It's just like how
Maybe
do you
it's an
prove-
app.
Oh.
Maybe they have an app on their phones. They
They just-
scan it.
Yeah.
99% silver. 1%.
I mean, it could
Yeah.
be weight, I guess. You know, you could probably calculate like the certain metal weighs certain much based off its density and like the size of it. I don't know.
And like he even noticed like her breathing changes. Like this guy is way too prepared for this.
Well, yeah. Wouldn't you be if you had to try to capture Vin?
He's like the Joker in
This
The
is
Dark
true.
Knight. He's like, well, I set up this, and I set up that, and I set up this. He's like, you wonder why I captured you?
Now
Like,
listen here, Batman.
how did you capture me?
I've set up a train, and on the train is a bomb. And if you try to stop the train, then this bus full of children will explode. And you want to know how I got these scars?
Now I'm just imagining this obligator as being Heath Ledger. Just a bald Heath Ledger. And I
That'd
do
be
want to point
awesome.
out this is the second time that we've brought up Batman, and I'm hoping that that is a first for your podcast.
Oh, you
I'm hoping
innocent
that my
thing.
presence has brought about Batman.
If only it were the first
What do I
time.
do?
No. Okay.
We have compared Vin to Batman.
Oh, no.
times.
That tracks. That tracks. Okay.
A single flake of steel, and you could slaughter my guards with their own buttons.
Oh
A
my
taste of pewter,
gosh.
and you could lift that bench and smash you out of the room.
Where's Elend?
Gag you, and to keep you drugged at all times. Or keep
That-
you.
That is unfortunate, just how well that fits. I'm
Right? Because she's literally like just aggressive. She's like, maybe I can break these chains.
I'm just a Koloss chasing after blood.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you guys go through the Cosmere, but I am an audiobook stan the whole way. And so Michael Kramer is the one who narrates pretty much all of the Cosmere with a couple of exceptions. And now I want to go find Michael Kramer and tell him that he needs to practice his Heath Ledger impression and re-record so that we can get this the right way.
So
He'll
you
be
get
like,
all of
"Who are
Yomen-
you?"
All of
Yes.
Yomen is Heath Ledger, and then Vin just, I'll never tell you anything.
That's right. I'll pitch this to Michael Kramer and he'll be like, "Who are you? Please get out of my house." I'll be like, "Just telling
It's
you, you
not
want to
who
make
I
things
am.
up."
But the metals that define me.
Oh, Telden, you poor thing. I'll kill you and all the servants.
Okay. Does
Okay.
anyone else have anything that they want to say about the chapter?
Okay.
Right. Sorry.
Vin doesn't yet know that Elend figured out that he is a Mistborn. Because we know that Elend did the whole I will grab you by the throat, and he was able to burn Atium, and Elend burned Electra.
Elend thinks that he's
Yolen reacted.
Mistborn.
Vin
She
doesn't
does
know
not-
any of that.
She does not know. Correct. But she definitely does can probably burn
I think she does know.
metals.
Which is weird.
She doesn't know.
She knows he can
She-
burn
She doesn't have
Atium.
the assurance that Elend has. But
She assumes he is everyone born. Oh,
Yeah, she
Mm.
does assume everyone's
Hello.
a Mistborn.
yeah. Vin assumes everyone's a Mistborn. So she thinks Yomen's a Mistborn, which is why he has the ATM bead on his forehead.
yes. But that is the last of my notes from this. Anybody have any other notes for this chapter set?
Spoiler?
I know it's very on brand for her, but she is very calm for somebody who was just told that she would be executed. She's like, okay. Why should today be any different than any other day?
I think
I'll
she
get out of
knows that
here,
she's-
and when I do,
she's like, I'll be able to get out. Not that stressed.
It
the
does
Lord
make
Ruler had me in a cage. You have nothing.
it does make me think of comparing her to the Lord Ruler when he like people would threaten his life and he'd be like, okay, sure, you think that. That's cool. That's so sweet. That's so quaint. That's how she kind of comes across. She's like, oh, you sweet soul. You think you're
Precious.
going to execute me. Yeah.
Well, she's
Oh,
thought she
you
was gonna
sweet
get
summer
executed
child.
probably for like for at least hours, if not days. Now, like I feel like that's like, oh, of course, like obviously, I'm surprised you haven't done it already.
You had me asleep this whole time. What were you doing? You were practicing your monologue, your Heath Ledger impression? What?
He starts monologuing.
He starts monologuing.
He
They
was
were waiting for
practicing.
the cup to fill up with, like, draining out rainwater and then filtering it. They're just watching the little tap thing go, like, drip.
How long was he
No,
just
it's not
watching
full
her
yet.
sleep too?
Yeah,
Wasn't he,
how
like,
long was
facing
he
the other way?
standing in the room
Yeah.
waiting for her to wake up? Like, what do you have nothing better to do with your life? Like, what are you doing?
This
makes me
is a trailer shot. Him in front of the glass sunset. I think it was like a sunset, stained glass sunset or something.
Yeah.
Like him in front of
Blood
that
red
the thing,
sun.
and you see him turn to vent. That is a trailer shot right there.
yeah.
So you're finally
It-
awake.
Him being there when she wakes up makes me think of like those parody or like comedy shows where somebody is like, have you seen what's on the news, and they turn on the TV, and in any other TV show it immediately shows up with what they're talking about, but in these comedy shows they're like, have you seen what's on the news, and they turn it on and it's like, today there was a puppy in the park, and they're like, wait, no, wrong segment. Give it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just imagine him like walking past the room, being like, "Is she awake yet? Is she awake
No,
yet?"
not yet, sir.
If this was in the MCU, that's what would happen. That's what it would
Yes.
be.
Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
Okay, then. I guess we're going to go into the spoiler section. Well, next time we are going to be covering the final 4 chapters of Part 4, Beautiful Destroyer. That is chapters 55, 56, 57, 58. I've already claimed 55. I think John's going to want 58, but that's purely guessing at this point, so who knows. But it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. If you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions to cosmereconnectionspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we must part, then my name is ReaderWarrior, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Hey, never sneak into a sketchy basement during a ball. You never know what could happen.
Okay.
A mantra we should all live by.
True.
How we going?
And our wonderful guest, Stormlight Memes.
Thanks, everyone.
Don't forget, there's always another connection. Bye. And we're back! Spoiler realm. Yes. So, we're going all the way back to chapter 50. Okay, first in the epigraph, we already start to see the little comment that Harmony has about, oh, He was as precise as an expert performed by the most talented of surgeons. He is manipulated amazingly up until this point. Gamel getting Kelsier to believe in the 11th metal, 11th metal getting given to Vin, Lord Ruler, everything else. Zane,
Getting
he did
Penrod
great.
spiked.
Yes. I have a comment on Penrod when we get to that chapter.
He tried to get Yomen spiked multiple times. Failed every time. Quellion is also spiked, as is Spook.
And Vin is too. You
And
mustn't
Vin
forget
is
that.
as well.
It is interesting that it says, like, I can't remember if it was in this one or another one, but Ruin had tried to spike a bunch of other people, but it seems like he spiked a lot of people. Was he trying to spike everybody at some point?
I think he
Yes,
was trying to spike everybody in the crew at least.
yeah, he tried to spike Elend multiple times. We saw it at the beginning of this book when they fight the Inquisitor at the very beginning. The Inquisitor tries to spike Elend. Like I said earlier, he tried to spike Yomen. He actually got a spike in Yomen multiple times. It sounds like at least once he got a spike in Yomen, but Yomen ripped it out before Ruin could take control of him.
I love that. Sorry.
Oh, when we list the number of people that he has spiked, and then we compare it to who he hasn't, it seems like it's a much smaller number of people who he hasn't, but I might also be just overly sensitive to how many people have been spiked, because it's a little bit scary.
Yeah,
It's a bit
but
much.
it's also, this book is a focus on those spiked characters. Like,
Yeah.
book 1, Vin. That was it. Book 2, Vin and Zane. This one we've got, we see Spook, Penrod, and a couple characters get spiked, and they have to directly deal with characters who are spiked. In which I love the fact that Yolen, who is the character
Yomen,
who is like the bad guy character, because he is representing the ruler, is like the one person who isn't under Rune's influence. That's a great little thing.
He just loves the Lord Ruler.
Yeah.
He's the Lord Ruler stan.
Lord Ruler was his god.
#1 fan. He's the leader of the Lord Ruler fan club. Yeah. He's got a t-shirt, he's got a hat. He says, I love LR.
I heart LR.
I tattooed my face for this guy, okay?
You can burn my medals any day.
I guess you could say it's getting pretty serious. I got tattoos on my face.
Once you get a face tattoo, you're either a slave of some kind or you got some serious devotion.
What is Yolen? Like, that is a thing in the Cosmere.
Yolen is the planet. It's the original planet that all of the shards are from.
Right. Okay.
And presumably Hoid,
also
right?
Hoid.
I was like,
Hoid is.
Yeah.
Because there's Yolen, Yomen, Yeden, Yemen. Yes, Brandon has a rhyming convention going on. Where he's just like, how can I screw with my characters the most? I'm going to name one Moash and one Marsh.
Has there been a Cosmere rap?
Not yet.
Has there been like a Cosmere rap?
No.
No, but that would be very clever for someone to.
Okay. Is there anything in chapter 50 that's... This is the whole Vin talking with Teldon Hastings. Nothing really spoilery here. Although I am surprised that the poison was able to last longer than Duralumin. And it's not until this...
Yomen is very careful and meticulous. He would have doused that wine with enough sedatives to knock out a fucking elephant.
Okay, but like, he doesn't know about Duralumin, right? The only people who...
Yes, he does. He was high. He was very high in the Lord Ruler's church. I think he might have known about it. Considering the fact that he knows about ATM listings, which no one else knows about because he is one, but like very few people knew about ATM mistings because he was high enough in the Lord Ruler
I will
Church
give
that
you
I think he would have known about Duralumin.
I will give you ATM mistings, and I'll give you like any metal we saw, Electrum, Malatium, that were all in the caverns that we saw. But
So was Duralumin.
I don't think Duralumin was.
Yes, it was.
Was it?
I think it was.
I
Yes.
don't believe so.
Yes.
Because Vin discovered
Vin
that
mentions
on her own.
it, but Vin mentions it that they were she mentions that the only metal that they were told. So they were told about 3 metals in the caverns: aluminum, duralumin, and electrum. The only one that they didn't already know about was electrum.
I'm gonna check that, but okay.
You can fact check me, but I am 90% sure I am correct.
There's a theme in the Cosmere of characters like getting drunk or being poisoned and their power keeping them sober.
Yeah.
I think it has to do
comes
with
up a lot.
Brandon's own faith. Like, he is Mormon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't drink alcohol, they don't drink coffee. Granted, I don't know much about the religion.
Well,
But,
and it's also like those things are poisonous to us. Like they are a poison. And so if you have extra special healing powers that will heal you from all poisons, it would make sense that those would be also burned off because your body can't tell the difference between a poison that you want inside of you versus a poison that you don't want inside of you.
which I
Which is
wonder if you get
interesting.
to.
Like,
Sorry.
well, there's like an addictive quality. It seems like to using like allomancy and even like I think Stormlight characters talk about how it feels weird to not have it anymore.
There's definitely that, like, I think you see it mostly with pewter with allomancy. That moment of, like, your body, your senses are heightened, and then having that, like, taken away, like, you feel like something is missing.
Yeah.
You feel that loss of power.
I wonder if you can get to a point either in like controlling your connection or identity where you can say, this is not a poison, this is what my body needs. Maybe there could be a parallel to addiction in that. And like Stormlight or Pewter will no longer work. That would be a cool story. That would be a very cool short story down the road.
Or maybe they'll have to like give up their power or something like in the long term.
Okay, but anything else for 50? Nothing really spoiler in 50. I think the reason we talk so much is don't really have many spoiler things. Okay. 51. So, this is the one where we learn about all the people who Ruin has influenced. Spook, everybody, yada yada. Then in the actual thing, this is Elend's big fight against the Colossus.
Well, I don't know. It kind of just reminded me of like the Mist Runner ideals. Not Mist Runner, sorry, Wind Runner. Like Mist Runner sounds like a AI Brandon Sanderson book. But he's like wanting to save everyone. He's literally dropping from the sky to like save everyone. And it's kind of that same progression Kaladin has to go through of like learning that he can't. And he even almost like feels the thrill in the fight.
That's what I also noticed that as well when I went through it. I was like, oh, this seems reminiscent of when Dalinar was fighting the thrill in the Stormlight books.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there.
I do see a lot of parallel between Adolin, or not Adolin, oh my gosh, Elend and Dalinar. Sorry, I think I'm glitching out.
You
Can you
seem
guys
fine to
see me?
me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. On my
Good on our
my
end.
end, my computer or my image is very glitchy, and I look like a robot. So, like if you've ever seen the Lego movie, how they move a little bit like that, yeah, that's me right
Yeah.
now.
Stop
Um,
motion.
yes, exactly. So, I see a lot of comparisons between Elend and Dalinar in how even Dalinar has the question he asks Wit at some point. He says, Wit, am I a tyrant? And Wit says, regrettably, yes. But that's what this planet needs right now is a tyrant, and that is who you are. And so, like, Elend can't remember when this comes up, but he does call himself a tyrant, and I like seeing the comparison because Elend had such a peaceful background. He he didn't have any powers. He didn't grow up fighting because he just couldn't. Versus Dalinar grew up very bloody, like a very, very bloody past. I'm right in the middle of Oathbringer and remembering just how bad it was.
Oh yeah.
And it's just interesting to see how they both come to this. I don't want to be a tyrant. I don't want to be that kind of a leader. I want to be somebody who's better than that. And then somebody else saying, right now, you have to be this. Like, you can't be the better one because the world that you're in doesn't get that, doesn't get to have that. And so being the reluctant power holder is just interesting.
So is Dalinar Elend if he goes too far and then one day realizes it? Or is Dalinar Elend if he was born to be that king?
I think Elend is like. I think where Elend is now is meeting Dalinar where he kind of is now, but starting from the opposite end of the line.
Mhm.
They're kind of like on these reverse paths and
Huh.
like meeting in the middle.
That's a good point because like Dalinar's whole arc is, especially as we get towards the end, or where we are right now, he doesn't fight anymore. He uses other means to influence and to bring together. Like one of the big things in
Unite them.
in yes, unite them, and in Oathbringer later on when he's like trying to influence, he has a one-on-one grapple with somebody, and it, it it works in his favor. But what works even better is when he's healing, when he's listening to people, when he's talking, and he's making that his power. And so it's like Elend, exactly what you said. Elend had the opposite. He spoke a lot, he talked a lot, he philosophized, and then now he's being pulled into the opposite end. He has to be more violent. He has to be more forceful. And so you're right. It is an interesting cross section of seeing them going towards the opposite end of the spectrum. So
Oh, also, I did look it up early, and for Adolin and his name, in Adoda, so it's Adoda, which means light, um, and Lin means born unto, which Dalinar, so Dalinar actually has the Lin part also in his name as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And Ba Edomishram is what I guess you're referring to earlier with the.
no, I was thinking Ado Nalcium, the
Ah,
Ado now, yeah.
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 But
You know what I was
Adonalcium,
thinking
Ba
of
Edomishram, I'd never pieced together Adon Lin.
Mm.
when we were talking about that? So you were saying how like each generation has kind of the end that's the same, like Gavilar, Dalinar. And I was thinking if you were going to infiltrate Roshar and you had to pick a name, maybe picking the name Thydakar
Thydakar.
Oh my
Would-
gosh.
Would like
Oh,
perfectly.
that is so funny.
I
Yep.
think it has that. He's of that
Mhm.
age.
Yep.
That's
He's
great.
like generationally, what fits for me? Somebody give me a name.
Right?
Oh my goodness. Fun fact, I did not make the connection between wait, this is the spoiler section. Okay,
Yes.
I did not make the connection between Kelsier and Thydakar, even though I was caught up on all of Mistborn and all of Stormlight Archive to include the secret history and all of that. I didn't piece it together. Somebody had to tell me that in the comments of one of my videos. And they were like, yeah, you know that he's Thydakar, right? And I was like, what?
Like, no.
How? That doesn't make any sense. And they were like, yeah, reread
Lord
that
of the
one
Scars.
section. Yeah, Lord of Scars. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was
That's
like,
when I got it, was the Lord of Scars, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
crap.
I had to have somebody spell it out for me. And that was not like I read at that point I had read Rhythm of War twice. I had read Secret History at least once. I'm pretty sure I had twice. So I had no excuse for not piecing it together.
Don't feel bad.
I've
Neither
learned
did
I've learned a
John.
lot through the comments of my videos.
Yeah. Oh, this was I was just gonna say like fun reveals. When Words of Radiance came out right at the end, when Seth gets his sword, gets Nightblood, on one of my rereads, I was like, oh my god, that's Nightblood. And I went to my dad and I'm like, Dad, that's Nightblood. And he's like, no, there's no way that's Nightblood. That's not Nightblood.
I read Words of Radiance before I read Warbreaker, so I got none of that.
So he was like, there's
But
no way
my
that's
big
Nightblood. That's not Nightblood. I was like, it's Nightblood. I swear to God, it's Nightblood.
I think my biggest wait what moment recently was the fact that the Ghostblood symbol are Merwills.
Mhm.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
Yep. Reading getting to that point in the Lost Metal was crazy. And like I don't remember if they said that explicitly in the book, but
No.
when we went to, and I don't know if I have the artwork in here. Probably not. I think it's in my husband's office. So when we went to Dragonsteel, because it was the release of the Lost Metal, they had a lot of Lost Metal art, and of course we kept seeing Mare's flower, and I was like, why is this here? Like I like it, I think that's really sweet to include, but that was all the way back in Era 1. We're concluding Era 2. Why are we bringing this up? Can you get past Mare and her flower? And then like there was this one piece of art. It was like a sticker or something, and on one side it was the flower, on the other side was the ghost blood symbol, and I was like, "Oh, this! Oh my gosh!" And
Yeah.
just absolutely went
So
berserk.
it was. It's not the. It. So the one of the some of the stickers. So this was one of the stickers. Was was shy
Oh,
Chime,
cool.
yeah.
I've got
with
the.
the ghost blood symbol, and then you had the Marrow. You also had the Marrow flower sticker in that bundle as well. So that
But
was.
there was something that had it on both sides, and it was only until I saw it on both sides that I was like, "Oh,
I don't
that's
know.
what this is."
I don't remember seeing sides. But
Maybe it was on in one of the art panels. I don't remember. I slept since then. But there was
Okay.
there. Yeah, sorry.
Can
Yeah.
I bring us back to Mistborn
Yes.
Era 1?
Yes.
We are running out of time.
Sorry.
yeah, we
Yes.
are.
Anything else for chapter 51, which was Elend's whole chapter? Nope. Okay. 52. This is TenSoon's chapter. I find it heartbreaking that TenSoon, after he left that night, like he was like, I should have stayed with her. He will never see her again.
Yeah.
That was the last time you ever saw Vin.
It is
Breaks
really
my
sad.
That is absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah.
Do we know what happened to Kelsier's bones?
He
Yeah.
keeps them.
Well, he's Spook. I think is implying after this
Oh,
book, right?
Yeah,
he still has them. I think he still has them. I think he mentions having them still in when we meet up with him in Era 2. I could be wrong about that. Can't quite remember. But I think he still has them. I think
Okay,
he
so-
kept them. Or he did something with them. Maybe he donated them to like the Church of the Survivor or something.
I think Kelsier's stapled to it. I think that spike is his bone. Something.
But he doesn't have a body.
But the
You
bones
can't
are
have
there in
bones
magical.
without a body.
Heralds are able
You
to
can't-
do it.
You can't use
Other
hemalurgy
things?
without having a body.
But magical mumbo jumbo. Kelsier is weird.
I think he was
preserved.
And we
stamped.
don't know that. We don't know for sure that you can't.
Other god metals
You
can do
need
weird things.
blood for
You-
hemalurgy to work. You need
To
blood.
gain an attribute.
We don't know for sure if the bones need to have blood or if the spike can have blood. There are so many things that we don't know for sure yet. Like there are 300 points of the body that can do all sorts of weird things apparently.
And
We
used-
only know a couple of them.
And it was literally stated like a few. The hemalurgic decay is an issue that will repeatedly happen. And meanwhile, in Era 2, that is not an issue. And if you spike somebody, they will die, pretty much, except for. But
So
now
we-
we've got the
And-
tiny little needle going through a person 16 something odd times.
Do we know if mist wraiths have blood?
See, this is John's theory: is that they fed the bones to a mist wraith and then hemalurgically spiked Kelsier onto them.
That's what I'm sort of in the camp of too.
Hmm.
You got a blank mist wraith.
We do have a wob saying that the bones survived the events of the last book. We might see them again. Speaking of relic-like items, Sazed's rings survived as well. We might. See
I
those
knew
again.
it. Sorry, that was a
Right?
whole thing. A few.
We did
episodes
talk
ago.
about that, right?
I
Yeah.
knew it.
I as an aside for all Cosmere metal rules, I have has everybody read the Sunlit Man?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have decided that whatever rule I think I know is hard and fast is not hard and fast.
Yeah.
Like,
Brandon can
at-
undo whatever he wants at this point.
Like
True.
I used to think, because I think Moraes tells us at one point that you can't use one power on another planet, and then that goes out the window. You can't have Aeons or what is it, Spren go to other planets. That went out the window.
It is. Yeah.
Yep.
It's difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult.
Well, they're starting to be able to do it a lot more and more.
Yeah.
In
And I-
bands, they talk about like being able
But
to
the-
excise your connection to a place so that you can like kind of do stuff.
But the
Yeah.
two people we do see with that ability to take their spren off are Dawn Shards, or formerly Dawn Shards.
There is a spoiler. I forgot that you haven't read released stuff that hasn't been published. There are other things.
Interesting.
Yeah, thin ice
Yep.
lady.
Sorry. So anyway,
I have no idea. I don't even remember, honestly.
um,
Chapter 52.
yes.
So
What was? Oh, chapter 51 was TenSoon. That's right.
52.
52 is TenSoon. 53 is.
I don't remember
Spook.
when it was, but I made a comment. What would Penrod see if he was spiked? We now get confirmation he sees the Lord Ruler.
Yes.
I don't remember if that was this book early on or last book. I think I made a comment about it. But it's nice to know that came through.
I love
Also-
the visualized like metaphor of people's being able to confront like their past people by being spiked. Like I love that you know, like just as in a novelization way. Like I didn't want to talk about this in the non-spoiler because we don't really know that like Spook is spiked right now. But like the fact that he sees Kelsier is just such a cool like way to have that happen of like he's trying to live up to him and he actually has him speaking in his ear. It's the same as Reen. Like
And my only other thing for this chapter was I got a sneeze coming, so pardon me. Do we think that these Luthadelites, the ones that all went to the caves, are the only ones that survived Luthadel?
From Luthadel, I think so, but I think that they get together. If I remember correctly from the end of the book, they get a lot of people together, and I
Yes.
think as well, when Demu makes it back to Luthadel, gathers up a lot of people as well and takes them to the pits of Hathsin, where the terrorist people are.
But
Because
Penrod dies, right?
yes, Penrod dies.
I don't like that guy.
Yeah, because Demu is at the pits of Hathsin when Elend gets there.
Okay.
If we're still on 53, I had some things that I should have brought up earlier, but I forgot to.
We were on 52, but I think that's it we have for 52, so we can 53.
Okay. So this is about Durn. When we first see him, he's like drumming, and it's just mentioned that there's like a drum set in the room he's hanging out in. Like,
yeah, hanging on the walls.
dude, do we have any idea what's like the significance of this? Was he a
just
drummer?
likes drums,
like,
man.
I don't know. He just likes music.
He was making ska music.
Okay. The drummer would would be the guy who's like, yeah, I need a title. Give me a title.
There was a direct line in this chapter, God remains silent. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It was Brandon is literally like hitting us over the head with the book. Oh.
He loves to do
I can't
that.
believe I didn't notice. Did you notice any of the things that were built up in this?
Oh, what do you mean?
Like the spike in Spook, the spike in Ben.
It has been so long since I first read these. I cannot remember. So.
I remember making the connection with Spook and Vin in regards to being able to hear Ruin. And in fact, way back in Well of Ascension, when we find out that that is how Zane had, because he was pierced with it and he could hear, and it turned out to be Ruin. I think there was some sort of correlation that happened there, and I was like, wait a minute, because the very next chapter included something about Vin's earring, and I was like, oh no. Oh, but that was not, I did not make the connection between that and the mists at the time. Like the first time that I read it, and then like the conclusion of this book when when Marsh rips the earring from her ear, I was always just a little bit frustrated that it wasn't that she found out and she took it out. I wanted her to have that kind of autonomy for herself, but instead it was like Marsh reached over and ripped it out of her ear, and then she was able to. But I also love Marsh. I will always be a fan of Marsh.
I would say it gave Marsh a character arc, slight as it may be, but also Vin had the whole. I just realized why preservation gave us more of preservation. She had so many other reveals up to that point. I can give Marsh one.
And she never learned about the spikes.
Yeah.
She never learned that Ruin was talking to people through the spikes. She didn't know that. So.
Spook figured it out.
It was just very,
when she's
After a while, it got very frustrating because as soon as the earring would go back in, then she's like, and there's Ruin / Reen, and
yeah.
and I'm like, honey, sweetheart, just. But she's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
She had the
And-
literal apocalypse to deal with.
And Ruin is purposefully manipulating her to make her less cognizant of the earring.
Like there was a line in this chapter, not in this chapter, but in Sweetie's chapter, where she was used to having the earring in, and it felt weird not to have it. So in that moment, she would not have been able to pierce a cloud, and if she was around the mist, she would have ascended right then and there.
I was thinking that like,
No,
you took
she
all her
wouldn't have
medals away,
ascended yet. She wouldn't
but she
have
can draw in the
ascended
mist
yet.
now.
She wouldn't have
Okay, she
ascended
would have
yet
been able to
because
draw in the mist.
preservation's body, preservation's cog.
Touche.
Like, Laris had not died yet.
Yeah, but I think if she started
So-
absorbing everything, I don't know. That's a weird question.
But
Laris was so broken at that point. If Vin started sucking that away, would it just have sucked out of him, or would his control over it still have held it? I think it would have just sucked away from him.
I don't think that she would have been able to suck in all of the mist at that point in time to ascend because it was still connected to Laris.
But we saw her suck in some of the mist in Fire.
I know, she could have sucked in some of it, but not all of it, not enough to ascend. That's what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but I gotta disagree. I think the fact that Laris is so mentally broken at this point, and it's literally he dies in the next chapter with Elend. Like,
I feel like there's a conversation in Secret History where Kelsier even tells trying to remember what he calls preservation. Fuzz. He tells Fuzz, he asks him, like, can't I just hold the power? And I think, like, for you, because he sees that he's unraveling. And Fuzz says something like, I can't give this to you because you're of Ruin, you're not of me. And that's that was the only reason why he said that he wouldn't give it to Kelsier in that moment. He didn't say anything about not being able to because he had a body. And so I think, and then like preservation was specifically holding on to it for Vin, and he said something like, "But there's a block. I can't get through to her." And so,
why isn't she taking that darn earring off?
yes.
Come on.
Kelsier's throwing things at her like a poltergeist. He's like, just remove the earring. I know I told you when I was alive. I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is going back a bit. Sorry. There is one more Bren type presence that goes to a different world that we do know of, and that was at the end of Rhythm of War. The box. There's a Seon, and Sanderson has confirmed that Seons and Spren are the same type of entity, and so the fact that pretty sure Seons, right, from Elantris. Yeah.
Type 2 invested entity.
Yeah, and so the fact that it shows up in a box with Wit is another example of that rule being broken, which just throws me off. But I mean, at the same time, Wit's involved, and whenever Wit's involved in anything, all rules go out the window.
Yep.
Could like a
Speaking
Mistwraith?
of which, I can't remember. Does Hoyd show up in this book? I know that he talks to.
So he shows up. He doesn't talk to Vin in this book.
She
So
skips over him.
she skips
because
over him
That's right.
Because
because
she recognizes him as dangerous.
Mhm.
The only character to actually recognize Hoyt as dangerous. Favorite
Now-
scene of it.
The question though becomes,
Yeah,
what-
I know about Kelsier.
No. The question is, was he actually dangerous, or was she being manipulated by Ruin to not talk to him?
She was being manipulated by Kelsier.
Oh, that's right. That's right, because he did.
That's what
I
I think
personally
too.
believe it's just that it's a riot. She would have already felt that feeling. She would have already felt that gut feeling. I cannot trust this. Something is off. And we saw there was a specific line in this book, like Elend would need reason and logic. Vin did not need those things. She acted on her gut, and it saved her a lot of the time. Vin would have, even if Kelsier wasn't there to scream in her face, like, "Do not trust that guy." Which, yeah, why wouldn't Ruin have also been? That's weird. Like, that's one of my favorite chapters, and that's like the one thing I hate about Secret Histories is that it takes away that moment in mind. But back to the chapter at hand.
Right. Okay, so that was.
So we're still on 53. There is the joke that Spook says about who that felt like Kelsier. That was a Kelsier
Oh, what did he say?
joke.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
He made a joke at Durn. I know exactly. You, Spook, said a title. I think a lord in front of your name is going to make that face any less ugly. You think a lord in front of your name is going to make that face any less ugly? That felt like Kelsier to me.
That was a good callback to earlier when they he was complaining. Spook was complaining like, "Oh, Elend never gave me a title," and whoever he was talking to was like, "Yeah, you just wanted it so that you could pick up women, though."
Pick up chicks, yeah.
And he was like, "Obviously."
It's like, duh. Why else would you want a title?
But that line felt like Kelsier to me. I forgot to say that. And then shoot, there was one. Spook promised to solve Beldre's brother, which he ultimately does.
Nice.
And that's all of my notes for 53. Anybody else?
Nope.
54, our final one. Vin in the clutches of Yomen.
I feel like in the epigraph, it's talking about how like the bargain between preservation and ruin, like eventually ruin would get to destroy the place, and like in like an ironic sense, Scadrial as we know it does kind of get destroyed and like completely reborn. So I think that he gets to kind of keep his promise in like a backwards way.
We know that the shards have promises that they are bound by laws to keep. Like Honor and Odium made a promise to each other. Later,
To contain
Dalinar
Odium.
made one with Odium, and the power enforces an oath. I wonder, would there have been ways for Sazed to have fixed Scadrial that didn't involve ruination? Or did the powers that be recognize that oath was made and do it that way so that the oath was kept?
Well, but he also says it was gonna fix the world anyway because the world had been messed up because of what Rashik did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a cool connection. Like there's probably something to that, but I don't. I think maybe it's just too late for me to come up with anything smart to say about it.
We have been going for a good while. Okay. The whole thing about Vin's whole, how do we know that metals aren't addictive? And she's like literally coughing from not having. I don't think that's addiction. I think that's savantism. I think Vin has reached a point where she is becoming savant in literally all the metals.
I don't think she's a savant, but I think she has been pewter dragging for months, and is having the effects of an extended pewter drag on her system.
Possibly. I don't know.
She is not at savant level for any of the metals.
Okay, but like, Vin is able. Okay, her piercing copper clouds. Yes, that is. You're right. Yes, but like she relies on it so much that I think like it would get to a savant letter. Her steel push and iron pull. She is at Kelsier level, albeit on a different branch. Her windmill of death is
Yeah,
very
but
different from
that's
Kelsier's
not.
cyclone.
But that's not savant level.
Wouldn't it be savant level for Pewter if she has been burning it constantly? What makes it savant level?
It is not just burning the metal constantly, it is layering the metal constantly for an extended period of time. I think it's for to the point where your body changes. It causes a physical change in your body. So, like Spook is a savant, is a tin savant. And we can see that he is constantly flaring his tin, and it has changed his body to the point where he like can't go out in regular light. Like he can't like wear normal clothes because they feel like scratchy, like he feels every single pebble on the ground. He has to put wax in his ear. Like his body, his physical body has changed
So would a
due
Peter
to
Savant
flaring the metal.
have like exceptional muscles? You think?
Hmm?
I think
Would
a
a
pure
Peter
savant
Savant? Yeah,
would
like what would that look like?
remove nerve endings, I bet. Because the whole thing about Peter savants being dangerous is that they no longer feel pain and that they will literally just die because their bodies can't. Like, if you shoot somebody in the heart, they won't feel it. They might go on for like a little bit, but then like the body literally shuts down. So, like, okay, I'll agree she's not at savant level because her body is not changing physically. There's been no sign of any physical realm changes due to her spirit web. But I think Vin's like close to that level.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Agree to disagree.
I think it's more just like a mental addiction. Like you can get addicted to video games, or they say the same thing about marijuana, is that it's like it's not addicting, but other people will attest to the fact that it is. It's like more so that I think than anything else. Just
I
Brendan
think
trying to
that
be true to life.
I think that there is an element of that from the perspective of she's relied on Pewter at the very least so much that as soon as it's away from her system, she is like not functioning. She's if she's to the point where she's coughing up blood, she can't hold herself up because she's been relying on Pewter so much. It may not necessarily be in the same sense of addiction as like the substance itself has an addictive quality, but her body has become so reliant on it that it has a similar sort of side effect. And to that end, I think that I'm more leaning towards agreeing with Reader in the terms of she may not be at savant level, but like her body has changed. It may not change in the same way, but if it is now relying on that to function, it's kind of like when Spook stops burning his metal and all of a sudden like he can't feel anything. It's not just that it's dulled, it's that he like everything is so muted now. So it's almost to that point for her where she has been relying on it and burning it so much that her body cannot function. It shuts down without it. And I think it's a little bit hard of a line to identify because of the very well known point of pewter dragging. But it seems like it's a little bit different because of just how much it impacts her. So it might be one of those gray areas. Like maybe she's not quite there yet.
I would also like to, as evidence, Your Honor, Spook has been burning tin for the year-long gap-ish, right?
Mhm.
Like,
He's been flaring tin.
okay, he's been flaring tin. Vin has been burning and flaring pewter since like the beginning of Well of Ascension. Like,
But she
well
hasn't been
longer.
constantly flaring the metal to the
But
point.
but
That's
I think that that's why it's not quite to the point of Savantism. I think it's leading towards it. I think that her body, because like, isn't there a point where even Kelsier is surprised at how much he's learned that she has been burning and flaring, and that was in book 1. Like, that was when he was still alive. And so I do agree. I do think that there is a line that she hasn't crossed that gets it to there. But I
But
do
she's
think,
standing right on it.
yeah, and I also don't think that it's necessarily like, it comes down to what's the point of identifying that. The point isn't necessarily the definition of Savantism, it's the impact to the character. The impact of what we see for Spook is detrimental. The impact that we see for Vin is detrimental, and so it kind of ties back to um, the the cost, the cost of relying on a power so much, and we see that also in Stormlight Archive. Like in Words of Radiance, they talk about how I keep wanting to say Kelsier because we've said that name so much. Kaladin. We see like the impact of him having to having to use Stormlight so much, and they even call that out. Like, I think Tef says at one point, "Kid, you have to sleep at some point." And he's like, "No, I'm good. I've been, using this Stormlight stuff, like you said,
Yeah.
Dad number 2." And then a very similar conversation happens with Vin, because she's been up all night. She's been keeping Elend safe, and so she only gets like 2 hours of sleep over the course of a few days or something like that. And because she's been burning pewter, and she's just been keeping herself sustained that way. And to that point, I think even Spook has a very similar thing, because he's also relying on those metals. And so the more that an invested being relies on that form of investiture just to function, it creates their baseline as being very worse, like significantly worse, as soon as it's pulled away from them. That was a whole
What
lot
she
of
said.
talking.
Ditto.
But valid points, though.
yeah.
But
And
I will admit that she has not had a huge change yet. But I think her coughing up, not having it, is signs like her body is beginning that change.
Well, she's also coughing because she's been like knocked out for who knows how, and she hasn't had water for like.
But she just drank a whole bunch of wine.
But that's not water. That's alcohol. Alcohol dehydrates you. That doesn't hydrate you.
Okay. And then there was Ruin literally says kill them. Him whispering kill them the entire time directly reflects Zane and also Spook, and it's just like, oh my gosh, how does one not piece this together immediately? Oh, I feel so stupid.
It does seem
And
obvious in retrospect.
on the charges of killing God, how do you plead? Not guilty by reason of insanity. Guilty. Shoot. And then
yeah, I can't remember, but because I didn't continue on reading after our chapters, but was Yolen seems like he really believes in that. Like, he really wants to charge her for murdering, and it's not just like his own vindication or whatever. It's he literally thinks that this is a crime. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
he does. Yeah, because he believed that the Lord Ruler is God.
Mm-hmm.
In his mind, the Lord Ruler is God, so he was going to charge her for murdering his God. Like,
It's like if we tried to charge Judas, right?
Yeah.
Granted, he's not the one who, nailed him to the cross or stabbed him with the spear, but like
But
he's
still,
the
a lot of
traitor.
people like he is labeled as the betrayer in all of the, or at least I grew up Baptist, and they didn't really enjoy Judas very much. So
He's the patron saint of like travelers or something. I don't remember which one it is, but of suicidal people, he's their patron saint as
oh
well.
wow,
Because he committed suicide,
right.
killed himself on a tree on
Mm-hmm.
a noose or something.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I looked into Judas, but it was the first thing that came to mind.
okay,
Okay,
does
but
anyone else have anything to say about this? Because it is getting late.
yes.
Yes. Oh my
My
gosh.
last note is the reason Ruin wants Yomen dead specifically is because he has avoided getting spiked. Or he has removed the spike and he wants him out of the picture. Even though for some reason bringing in the Inquisitor immediately obedient and that solves the entire issue.
Mm-hmm. Now, Yomen was also the one who was like debating with Elend. Like they had long series of debates on philosophy. It's interesting to see somebody so devout to a former deity who hasn't been in power for a few years. He's been dead for a while, and he's still very devout, but he's also very logical. So it's very intriguing to see a character like that in comparison to somebody who, like for example, Yasna in Stormlight Archive. She's very logical. She has a lot of arguments that are bound in logic, but she's also went in the other direction. She's not theologically based. So it's interesting to see those types of characters show up in the Cosmere.
That has a cool connection. It's kind of what makes him such a scary villain in a way, because you think when Elend starts debating him, it's like, oh yeah, this is what Elend's good at.
Yeah.
And then once they get to talking, you realize he's almost outmatched. Like,
yeah.
Oh shoot, they're equals.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, Ellen's having fun now.
Yes.
Okay, but Kay is right. We have been talking for.
Yeah.
Anything else we would like to talk about this chapter set?
I'm all set.
My brain's empty now.
Okay,
Right.
well that's gonna cover it for just about this episode. Stormlight, would you like to promote yourself on anything? And would like to pimp yourself out on any apps or for I don't know, clock tick or something? I've never.
Yeah. Yes, there's a clock app, the Taki Ticks. So I am primarily on TikTok, but I've been growing more on my my Instagram as well. So I do post my sometimes I do artwork on there, so it's not just the videos. I try to use that a little bit more for my side stuff. I'm also on Threads for people who abandoned Twitter and went to the Instagram version of that. And I do I post my thoughts on my rereads. So as I'm rereading, I'm now on Oathbringer, and so I give my like just kind of droplets of thoughts as that happens. I just started a YouTube channel, and that's really so that people who don't have Instagram or TikTok have somewhere to go to watch my videos. And so that's, for the most part, that is me. Follow me wherever you see Stormlight Memes. Most likely that is my account.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on. It was a pleasure.
Of course, thank you guys for having me on. It was it was a delightful journey. I haven't gone back to Scadrial in a while, So it was quite nice, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next. This has been Cosmere Connections. Bye.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Bye.
Peter and Kay knew each other beforehand through Secret Sazed, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's fun.
She gifted me a Secret Salesman gift. This when I was in California, and we had kept the package because it said Maryland, right where we were. First of all, right where we used to live, as well as right where we were moving back to. So we kept the package, and so it's when it came to Christmas time in Maryland, it's like I'm gonna make her a little doom slug, and I'm gonna take it to her, even though she's not my gift recipient. And I knocked on. I went to her apartment because and they're like, I'm sorry, we don't even recognize this. And I was like, okay, never mind. A few days later, I got, hey, did you try to come by my place? And I was like, yeah, I wanted to give you this as a thank you for your gift. I still have the gift. It's this awesome beanie that I try to wear.
Nice. That's really cool.
Like, we met a couple of times, and I think, was it John or was it you, Swiggity, that started the idea of a podcast, though?
It was me. I just posted on the Cosmere Facebook group. I was just like, hey, does anyone want to reread Mistborn? Because it was kind of around the time Lost Metal was coming out. And I know personally I didn't remember all of the little nuanced details of the series. So I feel like a good way to get back onto it.
Yeah.
Those were the days when we thought we would be able to complete the entire Mistborn books 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then have the release of the Lost Metal.
Yeah.
Oh, how naive.
So, I hats off to my husband because he did exactly that. He didn't start reading the Mistborn series until the March before, because he took the Final Empire with him on our. We had an anniversary vacation. And so I brought a couple of books, and he brought the Final Empire, and he was like, well, if we're going to Dragonsteel, the Lost Metal, I should probably know what's happening. And so
that's awesome.
he read all of Era 1 and 2 specifically for that. So, yeah.
That is quite a bit of reading.
Yes. Hello.
That's quite a lot of emotional trauma, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
What's a lot of emotional trauma? Other than just the Stormlight
All of-
archives.
I mean, that's
all
kind
of
of what we're talking about.
Mistborn.
Yeah.
I was telling everybody about how my husband had started with the Stormlight archive because I had gotten him into it, and then we had planned to go to Dragonsteel last year for the Lost Metal, and I had been waiting for the Lost Metal for 6 years. I had been because I had read Bands of Mourning right after it came out. I was so stoked.
Same.
And then I had been left on that cliffhanger for 6 years. And so I told him, I was like, there's no way that I am not going to this thing. And he was like, okay, I'm coming with you. I guess I better read Mistborn. And so he started the Final Empire the end of March during our, we had an anniversary vacation to Hawaii, and he brought the Final Empire. And that's I had fluffy little beach read books, and he's over here with this giant thing of the first edition, the Final Empire out on the beach, and yeah. So we were a sight to be seen. I think the book that I was reading is literally called Beach Read, and so I'm sitting there next to him with this little paperback, and he's got this full hardback edition on the sands of Hawaii.
Hilarious.
Awesome.
I got my boyfriend into reading all of the Sanderson books. He also started with Stormlight Archive, and
cool.
I convinced him to come to Dragonsteel with me this year, so
Nice.
he was trying to get caught up on the Skyward books in time
Yes.
to read them. He was like, "Okay, I finished all of the Cosmere except for Yumi and Sunlit Man." And he was like, "Okay, now I'm gonna catch up on Skyward, well, because you threw this series in the way, so I can't read Yumi and Sunlit Man yet."
Yep. Yep. Was he successful in
He
getting
was.
caught up?
He finished the last book, I think, Sunday night for
Nice.
the Skyward series.
Just in time.
Just in time.
That's impressive.
Unfortunately, he hadn't read Yumi or Sunlit Man yet, so he got a lot of spoilers for those ones.
Oh,
unfortunately, but
no. Yeah. Bummer.
But
Did
you were
he?
asked. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask if he enjoyed Dragonsteel.
he did enjoy it a lot. He's very excited about going again next year. So
Yes. That one's gonna be huge. That one's gonna be a massive event.
Because the Stormlight
Well,
5.
Oh yeah.
It's been getting bigger every year, so
And the fact
Yeah.
that he's not doing it Thanksgiving week will probably be an even bigger turnout.
Yeah.
and it's gonna be over a weekend.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It does get into, I think it like I have some theories about why he hasn't done the conventions over the weekend before. And since this one didn't go into Sunday, then I think it kind of enforces it. I think he tends to not do events on Sundays because of religious reasons. And so
That, as well as the fact that books come out on Tuesdays,
yeah.
and he talked about this at this Dragonsteel, was that the publishing companies wouldn't let him release the book on a Saturday.
Bonkers.
I remember
So
hearing about that.
He finally convinced them for Stormlight to
Mhm.
allow him to release it on Saturday at midnight.
Oh, thank goodness.
So
That's,
yeah,
that's good.
so because of the convention, like that's
Yeah.
why they're allowing him to do it. Otherwise they wouldn't let him release a book on a Saturday. Like,
Big as Sanderson, you would assume that they would like bend some rules for him, but
Well, they're doing it for his biggest book. most
Yeah.
likely, so
that well, they
That
are
is
bending
true.
rules for him now.
yeah, that's true.
Finally.
and this is Kay. She is the smartest one out of all of us.
Hello, Kay.
Hello. I think I actually did follow you on TikTok for a little bit when I was actually on TikTok.
Oh, nice. Yay! I'm so glad.
when Reader mentioned it, I was like, I think I remember that person. I was like, I think I found them on TikTok when I was on TikTok.
There's a small group of us, and I feel like the Cosmere Talk group gets a little bit bigger every day. So, yeah, we're small and mighty.
There are
Gradually
dozens of us.
growing our influence across the TikTok space. So, yeah.
Well, anybody who
did,
brings to the the greater like Cosmere awareness, like that's always cool, you know.
Yeah, I certainly I do enjoy getting comments from time to time from people who say like I actually had one that was really fun. I screenshotted it. It was somebody who had said on one of my videos, "What in the heck is this?" And it was like and he said what did I just stumble across? What the heck is this side of the TikTok space? And so I commented and I said, this is my favorite book series. It's called the Stormlight Archive. And so that was 2 years ago. It was one of the first videos that I ever did. And then he commented like 3 months ago, like in response to that comment, and said, I am now caught up on all of Cosmere. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
this is glorious. So, yeah,
Well,
it made
that's
me very
awesome.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was last year. I was talking to one of my friends. So I do knitting and crochet, and I was at at a knitting night, the knitting group, and I was talking to one of my friends who has read the Stormlight Archive books, and I was talking to her about the Stormlight Archives, and one of the other people there was like, "Oh, what's this series?" And she has now read all of Stormlight, all of Era 1 of Mistborn. She's read Elantris and Warbreaker, and she's about to start Era 2 of Mistborn.
Nice.
And I'm like, yes.
That is solid.
Another convert.
That's some good peer pressure right there. That's awesome.
I have persuaded so many of my friends to read the Stormlight, to read the Cosmere books.
Once you read one, you get hooked, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can't stop with just one.
I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I'm gradually getting my friends to, like, my friend group to read it one by one. And I got my dad to read all of the Stormlight Archive, and he absolutely loves it. And now he's starting Mistborn. But outside of like 2 of my friend group, like the others I've gifted the books to, and I'll be like, "So, how's that going?" And they're like, changing topic." I'm like, "Oh man,
Dang it.
bummer." My mom, yeah, my mom asked me what I wanted for Christmas this year, and like I always hate that question because I'm a full adult with my own adult money, and I like throughout the year if I want something I buy it, and if I can't buy it, that means it's too expensive to ask for people to gift it to me. And so I said she asked me this over the weekend, and I said, "I want you to read Tress of the Emerald Sea." And she was like, "What can I buy for you for Christmas?" I was like, "Oh." So
I'm gonna try that on mine this winter because I've tried to get my mom to read Mistborn, and she couldn't really get past like part 1.
yeah,
She's like, "There's too many characters," and I'm like, "Really? You've known Vin and Kelsier, and that's about it. That's about all you've
Yeah.
gotten past."
My parents were the ones who got me into Sanderson.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes, so my mom was actually the first one to read it. She read Elantris first when it first came out, and then she read the Mistborn series, and she got my dad to read the Mistborn series as well. And when he came out with Alcatraz, my parents saw it and were like, "Oh, this is a good author, and this is a book that is the girl's age that they would probably really enjoy. That seems like it would be a fun book for them to read." So we read Alcatraz, and then when my sister got into middle school, my parents gave her the Mistborn trilogy for her to read. So she read through the Mistborn trilogy, then I read through it when I got into middle school. So, and I got hooked.
Nice. Passing it through the family.
Yeah. So all of my family reads Sanderson books. So my mom is less so, but that's because she doesn't like rereading. So she hasn't read any of the Stormlight books because she was like, I don't want to start it until he's like close to the end. So I think she's gonna read them next year because Stormlight 5 is coming out.
Makes sense. That's a good that's good motivation.
Yeah.
That might be a good place to jump on. It feels like a good kind of end cap for at least Stormlight for now.
Yeah, well, and because it is going to be two groups of 5 books each.
Yeah, the front half and the back half.
Yeah.
As Sanderson likes to say.
I just can't help but wonder if it's going to be as big a jump as between Hero of Ages and Alloy of Law.
It will not. So it's only supposed to be about like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember it being 10, and then he's like, that might not be long enough, so it might be 15. And considering Roshar and 10, I'm guessing it's going to be stretched to like 20.
But we do know that Era 2, the Alloy of Law books, take place in that gap between Stormlight 5 and Stormlight 6.
So it's going to be after the Lost Metal.
Yes, is when Stormlight 6 will take place.
Cool.
Possibly because they start in that gap. So
No,
the main
he
plot
has
of
said that all
but
of
we've
the
had a
Mistborn books.
6+ year time skip in between.
Yes, but
Bands of
the
Mourning
first
and
3 books were only like 2 years, so that's only like 8 years total.
Touche. But we're also
Like that's still less
Rosharan
than the
years-
10-year gap.
but
Rosharan years are
and Skate
longer.
Train- That's true.
Rosharan years are longer than Skate Train years.
It's true.
Welcome to Cosmere
So,
Connections.
it
This happens a
Would
lot.
still be. Welcome to Cosmere Connections. Readers
It should be called Cosmere Corrections.
Cosmere Corrections. I heard that. I heard that.
Quote it.
Nice.
I heard that thing.
I love this.
I can schedule it so you never get another ball chapter again.
Well, that's fine because there are no more ball chapters in this series.
Dang it. She's caught on to my schemes.
At least not until Era 2.
Yes.
John went through and claimed all of the Light Song chapters in
Oh, yeah.
Warbreaker already.
Okay, I will fight him on that when I get to Warbreaker.
Okay, in the
Excellent.
which folder is it? It's under the formatting one. If you go under the formatting tab, K, you can find the doc that has access to the email, username, password. Just access that, and you'll go under the drive, and you'll see the complete mess I've made of the next. I even have sticky notes. It's like let's see, from not doing Stormlight Archive or the secret projects, that's about 85 weeks of recording. And then the Stormlight Archive.
85.
Shoot. Yeah. And then where's that other sticky note?
Reader
where
likes
those-
numbers.
I'm gathering that.
I have no Steris in me at all, I swear.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Stormlight Archive is and this isn't even book 5. That's 112.
God.
That's
Oh
2
my
years.
gosh.
Hey,
That's
let's
2+
get ready for the
years.
Lost Metal. You know, next thing you know, 85 weeks.
Good heavens.
3 years later.
It's a good problem to have, though.
And I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, originally we started this as a reread for the Lost Metal.
That's
'Cause
what they
we
were
were
saying.
Gonna plan to get through all of Mistborn before we got
Yep.
to Lost Metal.
Yep.
That plan went out in one episode. We did a 0 episode, the prologue, and then we were gonna do all of part 1. We
And then-
got like
Mhm.
4 chapters in, and the recording session was already 2 hours long.
We're like, we haven't even like gotten anywhere yet. We're like, this isn't gonna work.
Yep. Yeah, I had planned to do like leading up to the Lost Metal. I had planned on doing like recap videos on TikTok that just kind of said, okay, so for this chunk, just remember these things. And then that very quickly fell through as well. I could not. I could not keep up with it. At one point, I just ended up saying, just go to the Coppermind. Just read the chapter summaries. It's probably going to be better than whatever I can do. So.
Because everybody was expecting something focusing on the Southern Skadrians, and then Brandon's just like, nope, sorry, I've seen that for Era 3.
Yes.
This whole thing
exactly.
is focused on, hey, remember the missing woman that nobody thought was ever going to be brought back in? I'm going to use that.
Yes.
And a whole bunch
Oh
of
my
Kelsier
gosh.
stuff.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, that
Elantris tie-ins and everything else.
that came out of nowhere for me. I was very happy that I had decided to read Elantris before I went into the Lost Metal, because it was the one book that I had not read of the Cosmere, and so I was like, fine, I'll read Elantris. And I was very surprised to see Elantrians. I was like, okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that I know what this is.
Right?
So.
If you had asked me to list off all the things that could have been in the Lost Metal, I never would have gone with, what's her name
Forger,
from?
Shy.
Shy?
Yeah, Shy. I
Yeah.
never would have thought of Shy, and I never would have thought of what are the particle things?
The Aethers.
Yeah, Aethers. I never would have said
Right.
Aethers.
Right, because you hear so much
Yeah.
about Aethers from like the community at large, but we've never like actually seen them in a book until Lost Metal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then they were the star of the show in Tress. But
Yep.
before then, we were like, what the heck? I don't understand.
Huh?
I'm like,
Yep.
what is this?
Yeah.
We had one mention of them in one of the Stormlight Archive, like, interlude
Two.
chapters.
Oh,
There are two mentions
did not
of this.
know that.
Yeah, so in the chapter where you have Marais's laundress who's
Yeah.
washing his clothes.
Alita.
When she brings the clothes back, he's looking at it and he's like, "Oh, this is great! You managed to get the Aether out of my clothes."
Oh, I
Like,
did not. What book is that in?
it's I think it's
two?
in the yeah.
I think it's in Words of Radiance, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because it's before. Yeah, I think it's in Words of Radiance. Because it's still when,
They have their own
Shalash. It's when Shalash is still running around,
room.
cutting
Also-
her face out of all of the portraits.
I think because I just read Words of Radiance and Maraise didn't. I'm in Oathbringer now, and I think Maraise has an interlude in that one.
It might be in. Well, it's from the point of view of the laundress.
Okay.
It's not from Marais's point of view.
Okay.
There's also one from
It
Shalon's
might
point
be.
of view.
It might be in Oathbringer or Words of Radiance. It's one of those two.
I'm finding that there are a lot of things that happen in Oathbringer that I assumed happened in Words of Radiance. Like a lot of Shalon's plot, I thought happened in Words of Radiance. Like when she goes into the war camp and she starts getting drunk as Vale and then healing herself with Stormlight. I thought that happened in Words of Radiance. And then I finished Words of Radiance and I was like, what happened? Where's Vale? What's she doing?
Yeah.
And then now I'm in Oathbringer. I'm doing my reread, and I was like, oh, that happens here. A lot happens in Oathbringer. This is a very packed book.
It is an Oathbringer because Maraise was trying to lure Shalash out to tell her about Taln.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's also a time where I think it's from Shalon's point of view, and she's in like his room, and
But
there's
it's
a
not
jar.
specifically name dropped in that one.
No, it is not.
It's just it's a. You can see a jar of what we assume to be Aether.
Oh, yes. Okay,
There's
that
one
jar
of
with,
his like
a dead crystal or
collectible
something, and
things.
somebody asked him if is that Aether, and he said yes, that is an Aether.
Isn't that such a
Thanks,
cool chapter though to go back to after you read everything else and just be like, oh my god.
Yes, and see all the collections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the map
Yeah.
when he's like, "What the heck? Who the heck is Scadrial? What kind of name is that?" I was like,
Right.
Yep.
We better be getting this in book 5. Or I swear to
Yeah.
God, Brandon.
Or in like Rhythm of War when it name drops all those other planets too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's happening. It's all coming together.
It's all coming
Vasher.
together.
When Vasher fights Kaladin.
Yes.
So
Oh my
By
god. that was
throwing
great.
scarves at his face.
Yep.
By Cosmere dumping, throwing scarves, and then yeeting. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
so
like-
good.
It's like, just enjoy all of this. You will never see me again. And then he disappears for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, where does he go? Like, what is he doing?
I don't know.
I can't wait to find
So
out what he's actually
Sanderson-
doing on Roshar.
Sanderson addressed, because people asked him that. They said, well, why didn't Zyle help in Rhythm of War? Because a lot was happening and he could fight. And Sanderson said that there are entire chapters that he had included about what happened with Xyle, but he had to cut it because of length. And so he said that that at some point he's going to either do like release
Another
it in a
novella?
novella,
Yeah.
or he'll have to like do what is it uh not backstory, flashbacks in book 5, and potentially like included as part of like interludes or something like that. But he said it just did not make the cut. And I was
think
like,
it would
just
have
release
to.
the chapters. Just post them online. He has so many free things
Yeah.
on his Sanderson website. Just post them there. We'll love you for
No.
it. We'll
Or-
pay you for it.
Or send it in one of your newsletters.
Yes.
He always posts sends out little chapters in his newsletters.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't know. I ignore those.
Oh.
Well, that's
Oh
on
no.
reader. That's your own
No,
fault,
not the
reader.
newsletters. I ignore anything at the bottom that is not a published book.
Mm.
Raider doesn't want to be. He's decided that he doesn't want to be spoiled by things before they get published. How weird.
I will read the whole book. Because if you give me part 1 and part 1 only, then I'm just going to be like. And then when I get the actual book, I just want to skip over to part 2, and I don't want to reread after all the time has passed. So I got to read the whole thing, thick book, right in front of me at once.
Well, yeah, that you can
Interesting.
just skip and then you can start in like part 2.
But then you forget things from part 1. If you read it all at once, then everything
You
is in your
forget
mind.
things from part 1 when you read it all at once as well, reader.
You can't prove that. Okay, we should get started on the actual podcast, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to introduce you as Stormlight Memes, or... 'cause I go by Reader, Sweetie goes by Swiggity, but Kay goes by her name. Do you want...
You can say Stormlight Memes. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Okie dokie. And Kay, I have not talked to her at all about any of the formatting, so you cannot judge me at all about the top part of the chapter. But did you at all check any of our previous episodes on how we typically format?
I couldn't get to it. I'm so sorry.
Not
I
a
had
problem.
brought it up, and I started listening to the first episode, and then that was when you sent me the email that said, "Listen to one of our later episodes," and I was like, "Okay, got to make a note of that." And then I didn't get back to it. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, there are 3 chapters before yours, so
So,
it'll be fine.
essentially, we go through. I'm going to say it just real quick so that you can know, so you can come in prepared. So, we go through the chapters one at a time, and the person who does their little summary of the chapter, and like if there's like a point of view shift or change, we'll usually pause to let other people like say things about that point of view before we move on to the next point of view if their point of view changes within a chapter.
Okay.
And usually after the summary, people will have a chance to like go through and add things about what they thought about that chapter. But this said the first section is spoiler free, so you can't say anything that would be a spoiler for any future books in the Cosmere. So essentially you can do anything that's in the Mistborn series before this point. It's fair game, but anything after this point or any other series is you can't say anything about it until the spoiler section.
Okay. Good to know.
Hot topics to leave to the spoiler section are Vin's earring, hemalurgic spikes, Zane, and all the other people who think they hear a god. Kind of just gloss over that part.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't want to... We give enough where it could be, if you're listening to that, you can, when we get to that point, have the reveal. But we don't want to ruin the reveal.
Gotcha. Okay. Totally fair.
So it's more like, when we did the Final Empire and we were talking about Vin's earring getting ripped out of her ear, like it was just like, oh, the Lord Ruler's so strong, he's pushing the stomach, the metal's in her stomach. Her earring's getting flung out of her ear. She's pressing it like it's really
Yeah,
like don't even draw attention.
gotcha. Okay.
It was
That makes
hard.
sense.
A few weeks back, there was an epigraph that mentioned Adenalcium, and we had to just be like, "Yeah, that's a thing. Don't worry about it."
Yeah. Aiden Alsh. Boy.
Yeah, whatever, whoever that is. Crazy. What a name.
Cool
What a
name.
Yeah.
Moving on.
It's spelled wrong in all of version 1.
Really?
Yeah, there was no
Oh, that's
L.
fun.
It's just
Okay.
Adenasium.
Adenacium. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Hmm.
Okay. Good deal.
Kay wasn't on that episode. She has to watch it.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I was at Dragonsteel instead.
Fair.
A very valid reason to not be in that episode.
Yes. I just realized this is like the first time it's been equally gendered. Usually it's 3. It's like a whole guy fest plus K. Now it's like perfectly evenly gendered.
Must be
Yeah,
fantastic
that.
for your
Quality.
sense of
that's right. Gender
Diversity.
equality. Love to see
Connections
it.
has gone woke.
perfectly balanced, just like Mistborn.
Okay. I don't know why I've said that 3 times, but here we go, I guess. In
Yep.
3, 2,